On September 28, 1995, the video game developer Sega announced plans for a new ambitious project. Their goal was to create location-based themed entertainment centers, a hybrid of amusement parks and arcades, and place them throughout the United States. The concept was simple enough. Instead of putting arcades into malls, they wanted to put malls into arcades. In order to
would love to do it with Moon as well, PogChamp. I'm definitely up for it.
And insert them into complexes complete with small shops and food courts. Sega had tested the idea in Japan in the mid-80s, and reactions had been positive. The industry seemed promising in the United States as well.
They had so many cool games.
Dave & Buster's finding success with a similar
There's a game where it was Buzz Lightyear, you get in a car and you shoot bowling balls at other cars.
But it couldn't hurt to partner.
I mean, they weren't bowling balls, but they were heavy as fucking bowling balls.
They would find a partner in a familiar
shot by a fucking tank shell
that starts with a D. That's right, DreamWorks. Sega and DreamWorks announced their partnership to create a chain of indoor amusement centers named GameWorks, with filmmaker Steven Spielberg providing significant creative input. GameWorks would grow over the next 2 decades, opening over 30 locations both in the United States and around the world. The chain sounds a lot like another venture attempted by an even larger creative force. The Walt Disney Company and its subsidiary, Disney Regional Entertainment, would develop an indoor entertainment center for families named DisneyQuest that would debut in 1998. However, Disney Regional Entertainment was not even created until over a year after the GameWorks announcement. So did Disney copy the idea? It's certainly not the first time
they did.
Under the
it's
helm
Disney.
of CEO Michael Eisner.
They'll steal shit, who gives a fuck?
Why? Out of all of the entertainment concepts
what they do, baby.
up in the 90s, why GameWorks? Most of the locations and attractions that Eisner imitated posed a direct threat to the amount of tourists that would be visiting Disney's parks.
The birthplace of let's party tonight. Yes.
The locations hadn't even been announced.
Fuck
so why expand into an
DisneyQuest
and take on a company that has more experience and resources in that field? That risk does not seem to make sense from a business perspective, but it makes perfect sense if you look at it from a completely different angle. Who founded GameWorks? Sega and DreamWorks. Who founded DreamWorks?
No, obviously, stop fucking me singing. Christ, it was a phonetic alphabet. They had, like, some chain-smoking dude who could hit a few notes that would be like a stock sound you pick, and then you tell him what to say off of some sentences that you'd choose from. Obviously, it's not fucking me singing. I was 8 years old. Literally 8 years old.
But there was something bigger going on here. Eisner was spiraling, and he was taking the Walt Disney Company down with him.
Sample it for a gentleman song? I actually wanted to. I still do. I wanted to turn it into a Doom-style song and come up with like a crazy, violent, hyper-hardcore, gory music video for it.
Trek through a prehistoric jungle.
Yeah, it's something we're still probably gonna do.
A house that has not yet been built.
Would hopefully be a collab project with the Browning. The guy behind the Browning is such a good guy. I'd like to, we're planning a collab at some point.
You're gone, John. Your history.
It's a computer-generated world where you see and move and feel. Will real life ever be the same?
Though it had been implemented into specialized use for fields such as medicine and engineering since the 1970s, virtual reality technology wasn't seen as ready for consumers until the 1990s. One of the first commercial uses of the technology would be the insertion of virtual reality pods into arcades, malls, and movie theaters. These had horrible graphics, constrained movement, high costs, and generalized filth. The system in one game
not much has changed.
Cost around $50,000 to purchase.
Take that, VR.
It generally cost the consumer around $5 to play.
VR is kind of wacky these days, actually. That's just disingenuous.
And $10
VR is
to play
fucking
when
nuts.
adjusted for inflation. With the high costs involved, VR cafes began to open across the country, allowing patrons to try out the latest in VR technology. While excitement around VR remained, the boom of VR arcade games tapered off by the mid-90s. By then, the idea of VR had caught the attention of video game console producers, such as Sega and Nintendo, both of which attempted to create VR headsets for home use, both meeting less than ideal results. By the late 90s, the future of the medium was bleak, but GameWorks, and therefore Disney, saw potential. And
there was a lot of VR games at DisneyQuest.
Would be the main attractions of
By that I mean 3.
Complexes.
There were 3.
On June 20th, 1995, Disney announced that the Walt Disney World Resort Shopping District, the Disney Village Marketplace, would receive a major renovation. In September of 1997, it would be renamed to Downtown Disney. In its 20-year existence, The marketplace had already undergone a few major expansions. The most notable of these was the addition of Pleasure Island, an elaborate-themed nightclub district that debuted in 1989. This divided the complex in two.
Downtown Disney was really cool. It's called Disney Springs now.
These two sections saw their theming slightly adjusted in order to fit the Downtown Disney renovation. And a new area, named Downtown Disney West Side, opened as well. This new section would include a Cirque du Soleil show, a Planet Hollywood, and a ginormous indoor theme park. DisneyQuest opened its doors on June 19th, 1998. There was little build-up to its debut, and the structure was nearly finished a year prior to its opening, with Disney refusing to confirm or release any information, not even announcing its official name until a few months before. The public and the press were confused on what exactly would be inside of the large building when it opened, and Disney Regional Entertainment seemed the most confused of all. The subsidiary's president, Art Levitt, acknowledged that the team was having a difficult time describing DisneyQuest. It was more than an arcade, but it wasn't really a theme park either. When questioned in the months leading up to its opening, Levitt and other executives referred to
that game sucked ass. This game is dog shit. This was like the central focal point when you first enter DisneyQuest. On the first floor you'd come in, this is the first thing you'd see. It's like this dog shit ass fucking pinball hockey hybrid game that is just completely rigged. At random it would choose one of these little pods here to win, and no matter what you did, that pod would just fucking win. It's terrible.
Active adventure, which means almost nothing if you think about it. Disney provided a few press releases and promotional material, but overall, the debut of Disney Regional Entertainment's flagship concept was surprisingly quiet. Still, in the summer of 1998, a large crowd gathered to enter DisneyQuest for the first time, not sure what to expect from the new experience.
Thanks to give some Jordy.
Hello, I'm Michael Eisner. I'm here in the virtual reality studio where Disney Imagineers are creating a whole new world.
Oh, yeah, they are. It's a beautiful world, too.
Inside this headset actually allow you to step into the world of Aladdin on a magic carpet ride. It's called virtual. It's a world which only exists.
Yeah!
Reality.
Look at how cool the world is!
You see not just what's on the screen.
It's so full of life.
Around and behind you, and you control when you return to the real world. I wonder where the exit is. Oh well. Welcome to the wonderful world of Disney.
The building was a huge 5-story, 100,000 square foot blue box. On the front and back of the building, there was a large set of Mickey ears with DisneyQuest in large print. The building had no windows.
I might even be in this video at some point. I fucking lived here for a while.
Concept art for the complex
they gave you like a season pass that was just free entry for like a whole fucking year for $100 or some shit. It's crazy.
To the downtown Disney complex. Exterior ticket booths were located to the left of the entrance. Guests would enter on the ground floor, a simple yet elegant lobby. There were bronze busts of famous Disney characters placed throughout the room. The centerpiece was an artificial sky, with supercalifragilisticexpialidocious surrounding the trim of the faux window. This was the setup to the illusion that the elevators were actually flying you to a new land. It was a subtle and fun touch.
About the gold elevators.
At the end of the lobby were the turnstiles to get on the elevator. Once through, guests boarded the highly themed lifts, named the Cyberlators. These featured an in-route show, starring the genie from Aladdin.
Thank you.
This 45-second video explains to guests that they are being transported not just to the next level, but to a new location entirely. After this, the elevator doors opened, and guests entered DisneyQuest. Like the classic castle parks around the world, DisneyQuest was designed with a central hub, known as Ventureport. Upon entering the main area, guests could see a structure.
I hope he goes through the majority of the rides. I remember, like the big rides, I remember most of them.
Bridges, known as gateway branches, leading out to each themed zone. These were Replay Zone, Score Zone, Create Zone, and Explore Zone. The Replay Zone, located on floors 3, 4, and 5, featured Midway on the Moon, a classic arcade where guests could play
this was the most boring part.
Air hockey, skee-ball, and Tron.
Kind of sucks.
Called Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters
also
resided in this area. This was much different than the Buzz Lightyear dark rides that can be found at Disney parks throughout the world.
That is a full-blown banger alert right there.
Bumper cars with dodgeball. Each vehicle contained 2 guests. One would drive the car, and the other would fire dodgeballs at the other vehicles. The next zone.
Those were fucking cannonballs, is what you were firing.
Floors 3, 4, and 5.
Shit was
the main game in this
nutty.
area was the Mighty Ducks Pinball Slam. Guests would stand on platforms and lean in different directions, controlling a virtual pinball on a large screen. Another game in the Score Zone was one of Disney's premier VR attractions, Ride the Comics. Guests would don large visors and hold motion-detecting sabers, swinging them violently as they fought.
Oh yeah, now we're feeling it.
There were multiple bays.
Urgot was in this game as well, by the way.
The last attraction in the Score Zone was Invasion.
It's a fucking shame.
Alien Encounter, an extension to the Magic Kingdom attraction that had opened 3 years prior.
Is it 2 gift
Invasion
Storm?
continued the
3
world
sub
building that
Grey?
Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter began. In the game's
Makes it
story,
tier 1
a space
Clazen
outpost
pickle.
filled with American colonists is being invaded by alien monsters. In a moment of desperation, the President of the United States enlists the help of L.C. Clench,
Oh,
the chairman
yeah.
of Excess Tech, played once again by Jeffrey Jones.
Fuck
In a
yeah.
video,
Another
Clench
good one.
describes his new military technology, the XS-5000, that requires a pilot and multiple gunmen to operate. After the pre-show, players would enter the XS-5000 and be teleported
Thanks
to
to
the
some
planet.
cat, T-Dog, and the Prime
Operating 2
Pasoka.
joysticks, the gunmen had the ability to shoot lasers or missiles, as well as capture colonists.
Oh.
The pilot would navigate the ship around and eventually back to the teleporter.
This is so nostalgic,
and also
holy
trigger
shit.
the ship to jump to get
Holy
out of
shit.
tough situations. The immersive experience used 3D graphics and a variety of
There's also a
multi-screen
pilot as
screens.
well.
During the
One of your
4-minute
friends
game,
pilots it.
players would run into some familiar-looking monsters, with grotesque designs similar to those found in the Magic Kingdom attraction. The third themed zone was the Create
Son
Zone,
of a bitch,
located
it's
on
so
the second
good.
floor. This area featured the Animation Academy, an interactive demonstration
Thanks, I guess I'll
similar to
begin
those
doing.
found at other Disney parks. In that, participants
That'd
were
be cool,
given a
Evan.
tutorial on how to draw Disney's animated characters.
This sucks.
One difference
This
was
is
the
boring.
DisneyQuest version utilized digital touchscreens, while the others used paper. Due to this difference, the DisneyQuest attraction was only able to accommodate 18 guests at a time. Other attractions in the Create Zone included Radio Disney Song.
Yeah, that's the place. That's where this banger was brewed. Let's party, party, party tonight. That came from the Songmaker booths there. They should have named one of them after me for the fire I created in this laboratory. It's almost fucking insulting that my name isn't on one of these booths.
Maker, which allowed guests to create their own original song by mixing different styles, sounds, effects, lyrics, and more. Sid's Create-A-Toy, a Toy Story-inspired area that let guests
Mediocre.
combine different toy parts to create a new
Wasn't
one.
horrible.
And Magic Mirrors,
This one
which
sucked.
allowed guests to take a picture of themselves and manipulate it into a cartoon.
It was just literally
The most popular
Photoshop.
attraction in the Create Zone was Cyberspace Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Cyberspace Mountain was a simulator ride in which guests could design their own roller coaster.
So good.
It began with a tutorial
So
presented
good.
by Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Fucking
explaining to
Bill.
riders how to properly construct their coaster. Cyberspace Mountain allowed guests to ride their creations in a simulator car capable of tilting, turning, and even flipping them
Oh,
upside
it was
down.
so
A more advanced
good.
version of this concept would later appear in Disney parks as the
Son
Sum of
of
All
a
Thrills,
bitch.
a 2009
It was
addition
cool.
to Innoventions in Epcot. The last zone was the Explore Zone.
But it was kind of
located
Weenie
on
Hut
floors
Jr. because if you
1 and
made the
2,
ride
guests
too
could get to the
extreme,
area
they
either
wouldn't
by
let
the
you ride
stairs
it.
or
So if
from
you
the
did like
third
6
floor,
corkscrews
Aladdin
back to
themed
back, they
Cave
wouldn't
of
let you
Wonders
ride it
slide.
because the
However,
G-forces would
this
kill,
was closed
like
after
actually
less than
kill
a year
you.
of operation. The Explore Zone had 3 large attractions that were technological marvels for their time. The first attraction was Aladdin's Magic Carpet Ride. This attraction was another VR game that required a headset. Guests would sit on a motorcycle-like seat,
Let's
and
read some
after
Thomas
putting on
and
the
Ibom.
headset, would find themselves magically transported to Agrabah.
I
Guests
hope
would
you
ride
like
on
it,
the
Chris.
magic carpet while attempting
Jujutsu
to release
Kaisen's
the
great.
genie, who was trapped in the Cave of Wonders. The second attraction, Hercules in the Underworld, was a 3D attraction that took guests on an adventure with the characters from the film.
This one just
Groups of
wasn't good
players,
at all.
each with their own joystick, steered Pegasus and the heroes in an attempt to defeat Hades. The third immersive attraction was
This
the
one was
virtual
okay.
jungle
This one was
cruise.
kind of cool.
Guests would board an inflatable raft,
You'd row and
sitting
shit,
on top of a large pad
yell
in
at your
front of a
mom for
screen.
not putting her
The game
fucking back
started
into
as
it.
a jungle cruise at the Magic Kingdom before a virtual skipper sends guests to the age of the dinosaurs. The skipper accidentally drops the device that controls the time machine, and guests paddle down the river in an attempt to grab it. The pad below reacted to the player's paddles and the
They
flow of
spray
the
you with
water
toilet
to
water
maximize
too.
moves.
Yeah, you get hit with raw
A less
sewage
immersive
to really
attraction
get
in
immersed.
Explore Zone was Treasure of the Incas, which had guests drive toy trucks through a maze in order to win prizes.
Kinda
The
boring,
drivers
wasn't
operated
great.
the vehicles on a screen, and a teammate that could see the top of the maze would yell directions at them. DisneyQuest also had a few restaurants that guests could eat at. These counter
And they were good.
Food Quest, the Wonderland
They only like
Cafe,
sold French
the
fries, and that was
Cheesecake
about it.
Factory Express, a smaller scale Cheesecake Factory concept exclusive to DisneyQuest. Once guests had
Thanks for
explored
some
the entire
apathy and
complex,
toast.
they would walk down a spiral staircase and exit through the first floor gift shop. Despite the lack
Very
of
hard
marketing,
to find shit like this now,
DisneyQuest at
Seldom.
Downtown Disney was a success, sucking tourists and shoppers through its shiny new gates. However, Disney Regional Entertainment was not surprised or impressed by the crowds it initially drew. After all, it was located within the Walt Disney World Resort, catering to a dedicated, if not captive, market. In fact,
And
it seems
Charlie,
that Levitt
they
and Disney
marketed
Regional
directly to
Entertainment didn't
Charles.
view Disney Quest Orlando
I loved
as the
it.
chain's official debut. It was a mere test for the planned regional complexes, and the next Disney Quest to open would be given the fanfare one would expect from Disney.
Hi, everybody. I'm Janet Davies.
And I'm Jim Rose, and welcome to one of the most incredible places in Chicago this year. It's called
Chicago?
DisneyQuest, and it's located on the corner of
Wait, they
Ohio
opened up
and
more than one
Chicago,
DisneyQuest?
just one block west of Michigan Avenue.
JR, right behind us is a 5-story building that is an indoor interactive theme park.
Ooh.
It is full of high-tech virtual reality games and gadgetry.
Thanks, Resub John
I
G.
tell you, it is 90,000 square feet of pure fun, good family fun. And I guarantee there is no place in the United States like this except
Oh, and
in
of course it'll
Orlando,
be a
where
major
the
plot
original
point coin.
DisneyQuest
And yeah, it was
is.
wonderful.
Before DisneyQuest Orlando opened,
Of course I've
DisneyQuest
seen that as well,
Chicago was
Blood.
announced.
That is a
This would
classic.
be the first of hopefully many DisneyQuests throughout the world, with Disney projecting around 30 locations.
Holy
DisneyQuest
shit.
Chicago opened a year after Orlando's, debuting on June 16th, 1999. The complex,
Oh my
located on the corner
God!
of Rush and Ohio, was given
Buzz
a large
Lightyear just
opening
blows up.
celebration, with an entire television special documenting the ceremonies. The building was similar to DisneyQuest Orlando in that it was 5 floors, but it was slightly smaller at 90,000 square feet as opposed to Orlando's 100,000. Having DisneyQuest in Chicago was an ambitious step for Disney, but it was also a decision that made perfect sense. Chicago was the third most populated American city, and it was also the birthplace of Walt Disney. It was far enough away from both Orlando
Who
and
cares if
Anaheim
Walt
to
was
deliver
born
Disney to
there?
an entirely new market.
Who's gonna go?
Penguinz was
His
set
kids?
to open a location just outside of the city in the summer of 1999 as well, but that was probably just a coincidence. The main goal of DisneyQuest Chicago was to become the Magic Kingdom
He's a
of the
Prime
Midwest.
Lizard.
Due to
In
the lack
Volba,
of
the
space for
Reese
the
of
Chicago
Mariner.
location, some of the features and games were forced to have fewer stations, but the main layout and attractions remained the same. While many locals were excited to have a Disney theme park come to their backyard, experts and journalists were more skeptical. Apart from the criticism of the complex's cheesy architecture not fitting in with the surrounding area,
True,
they weren't
very
sure
out of
whether
place.
Disney would see a return on the investment. Interest in both GameWorks and DisneyQuest was dwindling fast. The ever-changing landscape of technology was diverting consumer focus to the internet and home consoles. And while the
Thanks,
public was
Resub
eager
Cat.
to experience both indoor amusement center concepts, the chances of locals becoming regulars was falling.
Where are the
by
gamers at?
This meant that DisneyQuest Chicago would
Let's
have
see
to
some
rely more on
gamers.
tourists, which did not bode well for a large-scale regional expansion. While critics lacked confidence in DisneyQuest, Disney had far too much. The head of attendance calculating at the Walt Disney Company estimated that around 3 million guests would visit DisneyQuest per year.
Pretty good.
However, this would have been nearly impossible, as proved by this quote from a 1999 article from the Chicago Tribune. The average length of stay is in the 2.5 to 3 hour range, so to cram in 3 million visitors a year while maintaining some crowd control, DisneyQuest would have to stay open about 17 hours a day.
Shit, who did the
every
math?
day, and remain
Redditor?
at full capacity the
No,
entire
they
time.
killed DisneyQuest
Apparently, no one had
with
learned
math.
anything from the opening of Club Disney, which learned nothing from the opening of Euro Disneyland. In late 1998, Disney had announced that a third DisneyQuest would be built in Philadelphia.
Exit
This
Tier 1
location would have
Siren
been
and
located
Resub
on the
Pot.
popular Market Street as part of an
We can check it
ambitious
out, Bill, sure.
redevelopment of the area. The city was thrilled to be chosen by Disney, and by the time of DisneyQuest Chicago's debut, the space was being cleared in preparation for construction and was set to open in the summer of 2000. However, production delays pushed the project back to the summer of 2002. In late 2000, both DisneyQuest Orlando and DisneyQuest Chicago
Resub
received a
Takai.
brand new attraction. Hercules in the Underworld was replaced by Pirates of
Yes.
the Caribbean Battle
This was
for
a
the
much
Caribbean,
better version.
which featured large screens surrounding a miniature pirate ship that guests would
This one
board.
was cool.
Each player would have a physical cannon that would fire digital cannonballs at enemy ships. A more advanced version of the game's technology would later be used in Toy Story.
Oh, I don't know what to
Midway
tell you,
Mania.
Monkey, I'm sorry.
Players would also encounter a serpent that looked very similar to the Lego model that opened at the Downtown Disney Lego store in 1997. Guests playing the game would have to defeat the Jolly Roger, which was not an easy task, and the majority of players would lose the game, with their boats sinking.
Yeah, this game was hard as
It is
fuck.
worth
This was
noting
like
that
the
both
Dark
Pirates
Souls
the
of
Caribbean and
dead
Aladdin
VR
Disney
games.
Quest games were designed by Randy Posh, a virtual reality specialist and professor famous for his talk and book, The Last Lecture, which he produced before passing away in 2008. The new Pirates of the Caribbean game temporarily reinvigorated excitement in the Chicago
Thanks to Resub
location,
Hank,
which
the
had
gift
already
sub
waned
Gandalf,
in its 18 months of
the Resub
operation.
Luca and Prime Hugh.
Unfortunately, it was too late. DisneyQuest Chicago surprisingly did not live up to Disney's unrealistic expectations, and Disney announced that it would close the location on September 4th, 2001.
What?
The official reasoning was that the complex was simply not generating enough revenue for the company to justify
It
paying the
lasted a year and a
expensive rent
half?
of downtown Chicago. Also, the complex was diverting a massive amount of time and money that Disney and the Imagineers could be spending on more promising and more profitable projects. On top of this, reviews of the Chicago location had not been stellar. The lines were long, the price of admission, $16 for 2.5 hours of games, was too expensive for
That's
many, and the
pretty
complex did not
good, to
deliver
be
the Disney
fair.
magic that the theme parks could.
The old
DisneyQuest
magical
Orlando
Disney
complemented
Quest?
the resort
I mean,
well,
shit.
but DisneyQuest Chicago, alone in the heart of a busy city, felt cold and corporate rather than warm and colorful. Along with the announcement that DisneyQuest Chicago would be closed, Disney Regional Entertainment announced that DisneyQuest Philadelphia would be scrapped. Disney essentially abandoned the prime real estate in the middle of construction, leaving only a large plot of dirt. Locals coined
Classic
it
Disney.
Hole, and to this day, it has not been developed further than a paved parking lot. This, along with the closure of Chicago, slightly tarnished Disney's reputation in both
the Prime
regions.
Spastic.
Despite the cancellation of all future plans for
B-Man.
DisneyQuest,
Hope the bad times behind you
DisneyQuest
soon,
Orlando
man.
remained open, receiving little attention from the company and little to no updates. Apart from the closure of the Cave of Wonders slide and the addition of Pirates of the Caribbean Battle for Buccaneer Gold, the Treasure of the Incas interactive maze game would be closed after a few years of operation. Cell phone frequencies caused interference with the remote-controlled trucks, and on one occasion, one of the vehicles burst into flames.
That's
which
fucking
is terrifying
awesome.
Considering that this occurred in a building that had no windows and a main transportation system of a magic elevator. The space was eventually
It is a
filled
very
with
magic
Blitz-Go
elevator,
Jumbo
though. They would
arcade
get you out.
games. The Magic Mirrors attraction closed in 2005 and was replaced with additional seating. And perhaps the most disappointing removal was the Cheesecake Factory Express around 2008. In 2011, the Cyberlator's screens were turned off, and they became just regular elevators.
Yeah.
A few years after this, to help promote the film Wreck-It Ralph, a large structure of the title character as well as multiple Fix-It Felix games were added to the complex.
Yeah, that helped Wreck-It
Along with
Ralph.
A few minor additions and
That's
a
why
few
it did
major
so well.
closures toward the end of its lifespan were the only changes DisneyQuest Orlando saw. The subsidiary Disney Regional Entertainment lasted until 2010, when it closed 5 ESPN zones and sold 2 more. The branch dissolved, with DisneyQuest being absorbed into Disney Parks and Resorts.
God
The
damn
indoor
it.
theme park was left to die, with Disney giving discounts on tickets and sometimes offering them for free with certain vacation packages. Finally, on June 30th, 2015, it was reported that DisneyQuest was going to close at the end of 2016 to be replaced with a new
It was
NBA
sad.
attraction. However, 2016 came and went, with DisneyQuest staying open the entire year.
Really? Wait, what?
Until January 30th, 2017, that Disney would announce that DisneyQuest's final day was to be July 2nd. To commemorate
I
the
thought it closed
closing,
in 2016.
pass-holder discounts made ticket prices, which had increased slightly in its nearly 2 decades of operation, exactly $19.98, as a tribute to the year that it opened. After 19 years of operation, DisneyQuest closed its doors. The building sat abandoned for 1 month, until demolition began in August.
Oh.
Construction has begun on the NBA Experience,
Ugh.
which is set to open in the summer of 2019.
And it sucks.
The
It's
closure of
trash.
DisneyQuest Orlando,
Garbage.
along with the recent closure of Anaheim's ESPN zone, brought an end to the
Thanks,
ventures
Reset
of Disney
Tristan.
Regional Entertainment, with every location of all 3 chains now defunct. But what about Michael Eisner?
That's an interesting
he seemed
idea,
to be
Peter.
largely absent from the development and debut of DisneyQuest, unlike other projects, such as Euro Disneyland and Disney's America, where he was on the front lines promoting and explaining the new parks. He did endorse DisneyQuest in newspapers and a few television interviews, but it seemed to be
Those
less
are
of a
typically more
priority for
sad,
him,
G.
and certainly not one of his passion projects. When the initial concept was pitched to him in the mid-90s, he told the Imagineers to, quote, "kill the project. Why should we go forward with it? So what if we can make money?" The exact reasoning for the strong reaction and what eventually changed his mind is hard to say. Maybe it
He
was as
just
selfish as the
hated
announcement of
gamers.
GameWorks and his desire to take on his former partner and new rival. Maybe it was as innocent as the Imagineers strengthening the concept and presenting the promises of the new technology. Either way, the lack of attention on DisneyQuest was typical of Eisner's second era. 1994 was the watershed. Frank Wells' passing, Euro Disneyland's failure, the defeat in Virginia, and his own health issues had turned the ambitious, creative executive into an unfocused, fickle, and often angry CEO. The
Damn.
development of DisneyQuest was indicative of
Fucking
the state of the
blasting
company
Eisner.
for the tumultuous 7 years since Euro Disneyland's opening, and it was a mere preview of the mind-boggling creative choices and shocking business decisions that the next 7 years would bring. Their renaissance was over, and Disney was about to enter the 2000s. Buckle up.
Ooh.
This is going to be a bumpy ride.
Oh, I'm on the edge of my fucking seat now. I don't care what anyone says, DisneyQuest? Fucking paradise. That place was incredible. Except if you went there as an adult in like 2015, because that shit was just sad.
The year was 1996,
Thanks to
and the
Reset
Walt
Elf.
Disney Company was in a very peculiar place. Walt Disney Studios
Actually-
was riding high, as they were in the middle of the Disney Renaissance. A
Thanks to
return to
Reset
form had yielded a
Bumifus.
plethora of box office success, while the rest of the company appeared to be in a state of disarray.
Oh, sweet
Jeffrey
Tassos. It's
Katzenberg,
all just luck,
president
man.
of Walt Disney Studios,
Thanks to Reset
was forced
Speedo.
to resign by CEO Michael Eisner in 1994. This was because Katzenberg had demanded that Eisner appoint him to president after the death of Frank Wells had left the position vacant. Many prominent Disney shareholders and board members did not want Katzenberg as the president of the company, and Eisner, who saw Katzenberg as hungry for power and acclaim, did not feel comfortable promoting him. After he left,
It's better than
Katzenberg would
bankrupting
form
the
rival
company.
animation studio DreamWorks SKG and would sue Disney for promised royalties that he had never received. The lawsuit would be settled a year later in 1997, with
Thanks to
reports saying
Primal
that
and
Disney
Recent
paid
Mark.
Katzenberg almost $270 million. In 1995,
Oh yeah, the farming simulator
Eisner had
esports,
appointed
I forgot
Michael
about that.
Ovitz, the founder of the world-renowned creative arts agency, to the position of president. For a variety of reasons, this did not work out. Eisner would dismiss him from the company just over a year later in 1996. Ovitz would walk away with a severance package of nearly $140 million. During all of this, Eisner himself would cash in stock options of nearly $600 million.
Holy
Money
shit!
was flying all over the place at the Walt Disney Company.
What
but none
the
of it was going to
fuck?
the company's other major division. Disney Parks had gone on a roller coaster of its own.
No wonder
during the
he didn't
preceding
fucking
5
care
years,
about making
and Eisner's
Disney any
proclaimed
good.
Disney decade was
Good
not going as
God.
planned. Many ambitious and creative projects were scrapped by the mid-90s. Disney's America was announced and then canceled.
Is it Tier 1
Disneyland's elaborate
Screeb and the
Tomorrowland
Prime
renovation,
Skater?
Tomorrowland 2055, was announced and then canceled. Disneyland's second gate,
Oh, it
Port
looks so
Disney,
cool.
was announced and then canceled.
That looks so cool, though.
Disneyland's other second gate, Westcott, was announced and then canceled. Epcot's New World Showcase pavilions and renovated Future World pavilions were announced and then canceled. A bunch of Indiana Jones attractions,
Holy shit.
a bunch of Muppets attractions, and a bunch of Toontown attractions all were announced and then canceled because of one bad egg. Euro Disney. The resort just outside of Paris,
What?
France had gone way over budget and failed spectacularly, causing a domino effect throughout the company. Euro Disney was not the sole reason that all of these projects were canceled. For some,
Does
there were
Euro
many
Disney
other
still exist?
causes, but the failure was always part of the decision, and more often than not, it was the deciding factor. Whether for financial reasons or personal hesitation, Eisner slammed the
does?
brakes on
Okay.
the Disney decade, but he still felt pressure to capitalize on the strong
He's
brand
a
that
Tier
the
1
studios had
rich
created.
homie and the
Plus,
Tier 1
the United States was
TLOW and
experiencing
Prime
an
Body
economic
Pin.
boom during this time, allowing
Big Scumby.
families more leisure spending. All signs were pointing Eisner to an expansion of the parks, but Euro Disney, Disney's America, and the other failures were still on his mind. This led him to what seemed to be a brilliant compromise. In 1996, Eisner created a new subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company named Disney Regional Entertainment.
Which
This
failed.
division would plan and execute Disney entertainment venues throughout
Just
the
learned
United
about that.
States.
That failed.
With this, the company would be able to profit off of its successful properties in an interactive setting similar to the company's parks in Anaheim and Orlando. However, what Eisner was planning was no Disneyland. He had something much cheaper in mind, and something much more 90s.
It all exists and is known as Disneyland Paris. Okay, that's interesting.
Disney was making money as every company should. Little Mermaid, Aladdin.
Oh, that was a crazy intro.
Hit so big, they wanted to take them east. They tried to expand, but Euro Disneyland.
Damn!
Real hard.
This is on fire.
It did not go as planned.
Like Full House.
Out of money, they were out of luck, but Eisner had an idea to pick the company back up. Going to the malls.
He's a Tier 1 Moldy.
Cancel all your plans, it's Defunctland. Cashing all your stock as quick as you can.
Fascinating Horror is a channel. Oh, okay. Thank you, Bit Sucks.
Defunctland is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Was that
In
Killer Bean?
1990s, the Wild West of
They get
themed
Jeff Lu to
entertainment.
voice that one?
Apart from the recent developments of the theme park industry, local entertainment was booming throughout the United States. Shopping centers that had existed for decades were being transformed into miniature amusement parks, with niche stores and small attractions taking over. Themed restaurant chains were sprouting up all over the country, with the usual suspects being Rainforest Cafe, the Hard Rock Cafe, and Planet Hollywood.
Oh, Planet
The most
Hollywood was so
unexpected of the
good.
New developments might have been the
fuck?
rise in
Place was
indoor
great.
children's play places. These were a mix of tubes, slides, ball pits, nets, stairs with steps
Stupid
taller
kids
than your
having
body,
fun on a
socks,
boring course.
socks with holes in them, vomit, disinfectant, vomit, disinfectant, those net bridges that your feet would get stuck in, a kind of terrifying helicopter thing where the mean kids would jump up and down and it would shake a lot. The open slides with only like one hill, which was just a waste. I mean, I climbed all the way up there. I'm gonna take the tube slide. And rug burns. So many rug burns. McDonald's opened its first indoor play place of this kind in 1987. This
Little bit
allowed
seen,
parents to
little
dine
bit.
while their children played, and the concept was met with glowing reviews. McDonald's would continue to add play places to their restaurants, and others would quickly take note and expand upon the idea.
Running swing here? I don't think so.
Damn, marketing was so different back then. Holy shit.
I don't think so. Then where?
This is like some TikTok shit.
DZ is made just for me. A place where I can really cut loose.
What the fuck is DZ? D's nuts or something? Like, what the fuck is
I
this?
don't think so.
I've never heard of DZ. Discovery Zone
opened its first location in Kansas City, Missouri in 1989. The facility featured an elaborate play place, a ball pit, a rock wall, an arcade, a maze, and a variety of other activities for children. Discovery Zone was a popular venue for birthday parties and group day trips. It also advertised itself as a good place for kids to engage in fun fitness activities. The company would quickly expand, opening 39 more locations until being purchased in 1992 by wealthy Chicago businessman Donald Flynn. In less than 3 years,
Donald
the chain
Flynn,
expanded
big
to
man.
340 locations. McDonald's had noticed the competition, and in 1991 had created their own chain of indoor
I don't
amusement
know about
centers
that.
named
Num-nums.
Leaps and
It's
Bounds.
too nostalgic.
McDonald's would not be able to keep up with Discovery Zone, and would sell all 48 Leaps and Bounds locations to the company in 1994. Around this time, Blockbuster Video, who owned about 20% of Discovery Zone, would up its stake to 50.1% and would assume
Goliath.
control of the company in 1995. In hindsight, this was akin to Radio Shack investing in Toys R Us.
Thanks,
What,
Resub
too
Labberneb.
The rapid expansion of Discovery Zone would prove
In
unsustainable,
Seoul.
and the company wouldn't make it to the 21st century. They filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in 1996, and would do the same in 1999, this time ceasing operations. Over 100 locations closed immediately. This brought a flood of horror stories of children showing up to the center for their birthday party, only to be greeted by a note on the door informing them of the closure. Some of the franchised locations remained open, and 13 fun centers, along with the Discovery Zone name and logo, were purchased by the company's main competitor, a powerful rat named Charles
shit.
Entertainment Cheese.
That son of a bitch.
America, say Chuck E. Cheese.
Wow.
America, say Chuck E. Cheese.
That is horrifying. What the fuck? I cannot believe this place was successful. This is like actual horror movie shit. Like, that rat is fucking methed out.
Started by Atari founder Nolan Bushnell, Chuck E. Cheese's opened its first location in San Jose, California in 1977.
Tier 1
Bushnell had always
more
had a
rear.
respect for the Walt Disney Company and their theme parks, and he wanted to create an elaborate entertainment experience of his own. He would combine video games, animatronics, and pizza into a restaurant called Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater. Bushnell would expand this restaurant into a chain, and by 1984, the company had over 250 locations. Unfortunately, this same year, Pizza Time Theater would declare bankruptcy due to debts acquired through expansion, the declining interest in arcades, and in some cases, multiple restaurants that were located too close to each other, virtually splitting the potential profit of an area. The remaining locations would be quickly bought by rival chain Showbiz Pizza Place, which was started by a Chuck E. Cheese franchisee in 1980. Showbiz Pizza did not rebrand any of the Chuck E. Cheese restaurants, and the two chains would eventually be merged in 1990, with Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated choosing to go all in on the Chuck E. Cheese brand, abandoning Showbiz Pizza's animatronic band, the Rockafire Explosion, in the process. Throughout all of the financial issues and
Showbiz is going in on the technology
there.
there.
250
Those animatronics
operating
look smooth.
locations in 1992, with all of them being renamed to Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza before dropping the pizza from its title in 1995. On top of their arcades, animatronic shows, and pizza, Chuck E. Cheese's began investing more in indoor play places to compete with McDonald's and Discovery Zone. It was around this time that the Walt Disney Company took note of the success of these companies. While they might have been late to the game, they expected to fit right in. After all, Discovery Zone had been described as an indoor Disney World, and Chuck E. Cheese's used Disney as a major inspiration during its development. If Disney utilized the same concept, implementing their attention to detail and intellectual properties, they could dominate the new market.
And dominate they did.
In 1996, Eisner appointed Art Levitt to the president of Disney Regional Entertainment. Levitt was the perfect person for the job, and it wasn't the first time that he and Eisner had done business. At 28, he was a salesman at a Los Angeles furniture store. One day, Michael Eisner himself walked in looking to purchase some items for Disney. The fact that the CEO of one of the world's largest corporations was concerned with something as small as furniture was a true testament to Eisner's micromanagement. Levitt and Eisner apparently hit it off, and he was quickly named Director of Corporate Projects and Executive Assistant to Eisner. During his first tenure with Disney, he would also become an executive in charge of
just because he fucking gave him an over-the-pants hand job at a furniture store?
Locations,
what?
Including the Disney Village Marketplace and its Pleasure Island nightclub district. Levitt came up with the idea for an ESPN-themed restaurant to be placed on Pleasure Island. In 1993,
how do you even convince the board of directors to accept that?
A company that
I was shopping for furniture, and you gotta meet this guy, Art Levitt. I mean, he's such a nice guy. He gave me like a fucking fist bump and shit.
With new expertise,
yeah, I'm gonna put him in charge of our whole company.
Entertainment. After becoming the president of Disney Regional Entertainment, he would head the creation of 3 national chains for the Walt Disney Company. The first was their attempt at a children's indoor amusement center to be named Club Disney. Club Disney is a now little-known project of the Walt Disney Company. Disney intended to build the amusement centers in suburban malls throughout the country. The spaces were designed for weekend visits, school field trips, and birthday parties. It would also house family workshops, such as Poo Aerobics, which was described as a 10-week parent and child stretching and exercise program led by the beloved and befuddled Honey Bear.
Aww.
The complexes featured play places, educational demonstrations, animation tutorials, karaoke, and kid-friendly computer games in a lab called the Mousepad. The e-ticket attraction of Club Disney was of course the play place. These varied from location to location, with some being themed to a specific franchise, such as The Lion King or Hercules, while others were not themed at all. The play places had varying names, such as the Jungle Climber, the Color-Rageous Climber, and the Supercalitoontastic Whatchamaclimate Time Toaster. Other attractions were a room themed to Peter Pan where guests could see their shadow, a swing themed to Tarzan, an activities area called Herc's Gym, motion-detected musical instruments on the Aristocat Music Wall, which sounds very similar to an attraction that used to be in Epcot's ImageWorks, an area for children under 3 called the Pooh and You Corner, a storybook time, and a variety of arcade games.
Cool name.
At some locations, there was a Little Mermaid-themed
Alright, I'm just gonna go play in the Pooh and You.
Quote, peek through the portholes of a sunken pirate ship and find a treasure, or chat with a friend on a cellular telephone. There would also be periodic dance parties themed to different Disney properties. These included the Lion King Limbo, the Mickey Macarena, and the Roger Rabbit Bunny Hop. Some locations had a room called the Applaudville Theater, where guests could dress as Disney characters and participate in a fashion show. There were also educational activities called Ed Ventures, and monthly activities, such as science demonstrations themed to Flubber. As with Chuck E. Cheese and Discovery Zone, a major focus of Club Disney was its elaborate birthday parties, with children getting to pick from a few options, such as Disney Princess Tea, Toy Story Search Party, Pooh-rific, Hercules Hero Hurrah, and 101 Dalmatians Bow Wow Bash. Some locations had a magician performing tricks as Merlin, and the cake for the parties was catered by the Cheesecake Factory. A child
That's actually nuts.
Club Disney with an adult, and both were given a
Cheesecake Factory bangs. I mean, that's
so
like
no child could leave with
if you don't know what you want to eat, you go to the Cheesecake Factory and you get a whole fucking dictionary full of pages and pages of shit to eat.
Within the complex,
so many different food items, all 20,000 calories.
Daycare center. The clubs also served Mickey Mouse-shaped pizza. Admission was $8 for kids and $4 for adults, which would be about $12 and $6 respectively when adjusted for inflation. There was also a large gift store called the Clubhouse Shop. One mother reacted to Club Disney's announcement by proclaiming, "Disney has invaded our lives."
Oh, that's a good question.
But I think
Who knows,
the children
Walt?
enjoy all of it. The opening day of the first location, which was part of a new mall in Thousand Oaks, California, began with a ceremony featuring Michael Eisner, Mickey Mouse, and Goofy. The head of attendance calculating at the Walt Disney Company estimated that over 10,000 visitors would show up on opening day. And surprise, he was a little off. When Club Disney opened its doors on February 21st, 1997, only 1,000 visitors showed.
Oh, shit!
No one had learned anything from Euro Disneyland's opening. One sheriff was quoted saying, "We were expecting a lot more people. Maybe because Disney advertised that tens of thousands were going to be here, it scared people away." Of the opening day crowd,
I see 10 gift subs, Tempest. Thank you for the generosity.
Haitian
Hope you're
workers
doing well.
28 cents an hour to make Pocahontas-themed pajamas. The demonstrators were probably also disappointed that more people did not show up. Still, parents and children seemed to love the new complex, and 4 more would be built. Another in California, 2 in Arizona, and 1 in Colorado. Disney representatives had been enthusiastic of the chain's success, claiming that they were going to open another 100 clubs, quote,
I will be
as
playing
fast
Monster
as we
Hunter
can
Rise,
build them. While reviews were positive, Club Disney was not without its critics. One of the higher-end malls that Club Disney had moved into accused Disney of ignoring the complex's theming standards by implementing their cheesy design. Also, parents complained about the price of admission, especially the necessity for a separate adult ticket, as they were not participating in the club's activities and were required to be there.
True.
Club Disney
It's pretty
also
scummy.
proved that Disney was best off not teaching anything ever, as the Ed Ventures activities were the most highly criticized of the complex, with many accusing them of being a mere tactic to convince schools to sign off on field trips. In the end, Disney did not follow through with the plans for expansion, but not for these small complaints. The company was impatient with the investment, and less than 3 years after the opening of the first location, Disney decided to cancel the
Congrats on
expansion
finishing
and
law
shut down
school.
the complexes.
Huge
Club
congrats.
Disney was not the cash cow that the company had hoped for, and being the late 90s, Eisner was not in the mood to play the long game. The company was cutting costs across the board, and Club Disney became another casualty of the financial issues. The chain was closed on November 1st, 1999, having never expanded past its original 5 locations.
Jesus Christ.
This was around the same
That's
time
rough.
that Discovery Zone ceased its operations, leading many to believe that
Exit
indoor
5 gift
play
subs,
centers were
Axis.
just a fad of the
Appreciate
90s.
it. Thank you for the
As Chuck E.
generosity.
Cheese's would prove, there is some longevity to the concept, so long as you innovate or evolve. As for Disney Regional Entertainment,
Chuck E. Cheese
Club
hasn't
Disney
fucking
would be the
evolved. What are you
smallest
talking
of their
about?
3 projects. Another
Why is it
regional
still
chain
fucking
Levitt
weird?
would create was based off his
Well, I mean, I
original
haven't been
idea
in
for an
15 years, I don't even know
ESPN-themed
why I'm saying
restaurant,
that.
now possible thanks to Disney's 1996 acquisition of ABC.
Thanks the Prime Big Moist.
Hi.
Hi. How are you guys holding up without me?
Oh, we're okay. We were just watching a little TV.
Have the kids driven you nuts yet?
We've been keeping ourselves entertained.
Jess said she'd help you with the dishes tonight.
Well, the kitchen is spotless and dinner was great.
Wow, you should reward yourselves. Take them somewhere fun. That will have a huge impact on the league.
Yeah! ESPN
Complexes were
Zone.
part bar,
What a cool
part
place
restaurant,
to
Part
be.
arcade, part gift shop, and part broadcast studio. It was such a hit among sports fans
Thanks
that
for
there
5
were
gift subs
apparently points
sucks,
where
and the
guests
5
would have
gift
to be
subs
dragged
man didn't
out for
start.
staying an excessive amount
Back-to-back
of
gift
time.
subs.
The ESPN Zone would also put on the Ultimate Couch Potato Competition, a sitting competition that challenged participants to watch TV without falling asleep or getting up, only allowing a bathroom break every 8 hours. One year, the winner watched TV for 3 straight days.
What the fuck? Wait, what?
ESPN
No
Zone
way
would
someone
move
didn't
Baltimore
die
on
from
July
deep vein
11th,
thrombosis.
1998.
No way.
The brand would grow to a total of 9 locations, many of which would close in the mid to late 2000s, mostly due to the recession. And the only remaining location, at Downtown Disney in Anaheim, closed June 2nd, 2018
Exit
to
Tier
make
1.
room for the Disneyland Resort's new
Twomper.
hotel. In between Club Disney and ESPN Zone would be Disney Regional Entertainment's most ambitious project. It was the main reason that the subsidiary had been created. It was the Imagineers' most puzzling concoction. It was DisneyQuest.
No, stop. DisneyQuest is... Man, stop that. You gotta fucking stop with that. DisneyQuest was, and always will be Disney's best park that they ever tried to open. That shit was fucking beautiful in its prime.
So, it's the lighting. It's getting the lighting in video just balance the change.
I think it's fantastic.
Mr.
Scary
Eisner?
stuff, sure.
Hi, Michael.
Oh, certainly,
Thanks for resub,
Mr. Eisner. Sorry to disturb you, but I'm delivering to you Mr. Barry Bostwick and Mr. Richard Kind. If you'll just sign for them.
Really?
Yeah, right on there. Thank you very much.
Oh,
hey, Michael.
Richard.
Hi, Michael.
Barry.
Michael!
Yeah, we were told to meet the Big Cheese at the Disneyland Resort.
The Big Cheese. I'm not the big... I wish I was the Big Cheese. This is the Big Cheese.
Oh my god! Mickey!
For you all day. Well, I want to give you a personal tour of Disney's California Adventure. Ooh, what do you say we start with a ride on California Screamin'?
So, Mickey?
Yeah, this looks like shit.
You and me, and I love that ride.
Thanks for 5 gift subs, Ironic, and resub 2.
Okay, boss.
And Avery.
Okay, boss. You know, Mickey, I think this is the beginning.
Sounds good, Monkey.
You betcha.
It wasn't. And now the story of a company in panic, and the one CEO who just couldn't seem to catch a break.
So was Michael Eisner like the worst CEO of Disney ever? Like, this guy seems to fucking suck. He can't get anything right.
On July 17th, 1955,
Thanks to
Disneyland
2
opened
gift
its
subs, Storm.
gates to the public, and along with
Vince
elaborate
Leon.
theming, it had an expansive, magical parking lot. Due to its placement in Anaheim, Disneyland's land was
Oh, I
far
know all
from
about that,
sprawling. This
yeah.
made the parking lot prime real estate for any kind of expansion, including a potential second gate. While a variety of concepts for a second park were proposed over the years, it wouldn't be until 1982
Exit
that
Tier
the
1
Walt Disney
Sonic
Company would
Lewis.
seriously begin to consider it. On October 1st of that year, Epcot Center in Orlando, Florida's Walt Disney World opened. This created the Walt Disney World Resort as it is known today, and it made a multi-day vacation to the resort necessary if guests were going to explore all of the offerings. 2 years later in 1984, it was becoming increasingly clear that despite Epcot's success, Disney as a company was not doing well. A string of box office failures from their studio and big budget projects for the parks had brought Disney to the lowest point in the company's history,
The fuck is
and
Splash?
many feared a takeover. In a bold move by the company,
Oh,
then
wait.
CEO and President Ron Miller, then by the company.
Hold on. Is this the, Yeah, hey, wait, I know Splash. When I was a kid, there's a scene in Splash where the mermaid has her titties out, and you can see side boob. I used to pause that scene occasionally. It wasn't my go-to movie, but I used to watch that occasionally to look at titties when I was a young man. Fuck yeah, I didn't know that was a Disney movie. That's Tom Hanks, baby. Let me type, I'll just type it in Splash titty scene, maybe? Splash titty? Nope, that, whoa, wow. I don't know what I was thinking with that. I don't know if I can find the scene, but yeah, it's a classic. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about.
Takeover.
Had no idea
In a
that was
bold move
Disney.
by the company, then CEO and President Ron Miller was ousted, and Michael Eisner was brought in as the company's
Next to
new
Tier
CEO.
1.
Eisner had big plans
Mia's
for the
Lost
company,
and the Tier
the
1
most notable
Optimus,
of which were to
Spike,
turn the company's failing studios
Resub
around,
Nick, maybe
make the
not
existing Disney
Vibe
parks
Baby
more
and
appealing to
8-track.
older audiences, expand internationally
I don't know what that
with
is,
the addition
McNaughty.
of a European park, and finally make Anaheim a multi-day resort with the addition of a second gate. In 1987, the Walt Disney Company acquired the Rather
Thanks for the
Corporation.
resub, Greg.
Decades earlier in the mid-1950s, Walt Disney had asked oil tycoon and television producer Jack Rather to build the Disneyland Hotel, since Disney lacked the funds, having spent most of his money constructing Disneyland. Since then and up until Disney's acquisition in 1987, the Rather Corporation had owned the Disneyland Hotel and property near the theme park. The obvious next step
Thanks
after
for resub,
obtaining the
McNeil
necessary
and
assets was
Greg.
to finally build a
By the
second
way, I
theme
popped up
park in
twice.
the Disneyland Resort, and it might have been that
Resub,
simple
Mattman.
had Eisner not gotten distracted. Apart from the Disneyland Hotel, the Rather Corporation also owned the RMS Queen Mary, a retired ocean liner that was permanently docked in Long Beach, California. After Disney acquired the Rather Corporation, Eisner became interested in transforming the Queen Mary and surrounding land into a new resort called Port Disney. Port Disney was to feature
very
hotels,
ambitious.
a cruise ship dock, and an all-new ocean-themed amusement park called Disney Sea. Eisner pitted the cities of Anaheim and Long Beach against one another, trying to decide whether to build Disney Sea as
Holy
the second
shit.
gate to Disneyland Resort or build it in Long Beach within Port
Imagine
Disney.
if he
The
actually
announcement was
made
in
that.
January of 1990, and Anaheim and Long
What
Beach both
the
worked with
fuck?
Disney
That looks
in order to bring a
nuts.
new theme park to their city. However, the citizens of both cities were not.
This man was straight building
citing
Atlantis.
the issues the residential neighborhoods of Anaheim already faced due to the existing park. This, along with a variety of other legal, logistical, and budgetary issues, caused Eisner to announce in late 1991 that plans for Port Disney and Disney Sea had been scrapped in favor of an alternative idea that the
Thanks to Prime
Imagineers
B-Star
had
and
developed.
resub
Due to the
Villain
popularity
Views
of
and the
Florida's
Gibson
Epcot,
Dorm.
Eisner and the Imagineers
Yeah, I
believed
watched
that
a
a
lot
West
of Tim
Coast
and Eric.
version of the park was the best idea for Disneyland's second gate. The park would have been almost identical to Epcot, with a few notable changes, such as a larger spaceship Earth, improved future world attractions, and a much different world showcase, including a steel dragon coaster in the Asia Pavilion and a boat cruise around the entire world. Westcott was
For some
announced at
reason,
the same
raid
time as the
notifications aren't
cancellation
going
of
through.
Port
I really
Disney and
appreciate
Disney
the raid.
Sea
I'm
in
sorry, man.
1991. 1 year later, Euro Disneyland
I didn't
would
know.
open, which,
I've
for
been
a
at,
variety
like,
of
raid
reasons that are
notifications
too long
haven't
to
gone off the
discuss
last
here,
week or
failed
so.
horribly. The budget for the parks division was cut dramatically, and as ideas for Westcott grew, it became clear that the company could not afford such an expansion. But Eisner did not give up on the Disneyland Resort, and despite the issues, went forward with his plans for a second park. Eisner had a simple technique that he often used when he decided on new projects.
What will lose us the
known
most
as
money
jealousy.
quickest?
Whenever Eisner saw another
Classic
company
Eisner.
doing something successfully, he decided that Disney would do the same thing. Moreover, he would take the idea and do basically the same thing in basically the same place. For instance, after seeing the success of the amusement park zoo hybrid Busch Gardens Tampa in the early 90s, he greenlit Disney's Animal Kingdom. The park was just over an hour from Busch Gardens. After seeing the success of the Church Street Station nightclubs in Orlando, Florida, Eisner greenlit his own nightclubs in
So this guy was just plagiarized
Pleasure Island was
and
about
still
half an hour
couldn't
from
do it
Church Street
right.
Station. So when Westcott was cancelled and Disney returned to the
Fucking
drawing board,
Eisner.
it wouldn't be long until Eisner was presented with a new idea. Since the Disneyland Resort at the time provided
his
such
whole
a
career was
short
just
list of
copying
vacationers,
homework
many of the guests
badly.
would go explore the other tourist offerings of California after their trip. Disneyland president Paul Pressler recognized this and pitched an idea to Eisner. If Disney could provide all the sights and attractions of the state of California within the Disneyland Resort, then guests would have no reason to leave and spend their money elsewhere. This concept would develop into the plans for California Adventure, a California-themed theme park to be located in the already California-themed California. Concept art for the park was released in
Who cares about California that much? If you want to experience California, just go outside in California.
From soaring above Yosemite Valley to the glitz and glamour of Hollywood movie making. The original concept art from the park had a sense of serenity, and it seemed to be designed as an intimate, romantic tribute to California. In the Hollywood section of the park, there was to be
who needs a fucking tribute to California? What the
and
fuck?
former restaurant at the Los Angeles International Airport, which was being renovated by Walt Disney Imagineering around the time that California Adventure was in development. This was to be the show building to one of California Adventure's.
Oh my god, this word is losing meaning. I've heard it so many fucking times.
A high-speed dark ride.
Eisner proposed the Californiaception, California in California Adventures, California,
They would be greeted by Michael Eisner himself. Eisner would tell guests that they had to get to the big premiere at Grauman's Chinese Theater as soon as possible to sign a contract for their next film. But he warned guests that the paparazzi were all over town, and if they were caught doing anything to ruin their image, then Eisner would have to cancel the deal. The limo driver would then floor it in an attempt to get guests to the movie premiere on time. According to Disney historian Jim Hill, the ride system would have been a combination of a traditional dark ride and a family-friendly
and nasty.
The ride would have also included a variety of jokes and gags. For instance, guests would fly past the famous Tail of the Pup hot dog
Thanks, Valentine.
stand
We actually
with
watched
large
all of
man
Chains
and
of Love.
rhinestones creating sounds of flatulence. But as guests turned the corner, it would become clear that this was actually Elvis Presley squirting mustard onto a hot dog. The ride ended with guests reaching the Chinese theater, only to have Eisner tell them that he would have to cancel the contract because they had been caught by the paparazzi. Then, a picture taken of guests while on the ride would be shown, cropped into a tabloid reporting on their limo chase. After this, guests would exit and walk the red carpet into the Chinese theater, which was the gift shop and exit to the attraction, where fake Oscars, on-ride photos, and t-shirts would have been sold. The original concept of Superstar Limo was nothing groundbreaking, but it seemed that it would have been a fun dark ride that would have fit perfectly in the Hollywood section of the park. However, the mid-90s version of the attraction would not be the one that guests experienced when the park opened. And this time, it wasn't Eisner's fault.
I can't even believe that. Eisner paid him to say that.
In August of
this was Eisner's fault.
In Paris, France, Diana, Princess of Wales, was killed in a limo accident. Her driver was supposedly fleeing from paparazzi when he lost control of the wheel. The tragedy captured the attention of the entire world, who grieved the death of the princess and the other passengers. As for Eisner and his team, they now had a big problem. Superstar Limo could no longer be a high-speed paparazzi chase. It would now seem that it was some sort of twisted reference to the tragedy. The Imagineers scrambled.
Eisner got fucked on that one.
Cloning a Disney MGM attraction to the Anaheim Park. Top contenders were the Great Movie Ride, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, or Rock and Roller Coaster, which at the time was still in development. Of these, the Tower of Terror was probably considered to be the top contender, as Eisner was heavily pushing for the idea of a ride-hotel hybrid. On top of most everyone besides him thinking that this was a bad idea that logistically would be problematic, if not impossible, it was also clear that the budget for California Adventure would not allow for this, or any of the other potential attractions, which meant that the Hollywood section of the park would not have a ride on opening day. Or would it? Forced, whether by situation or executives, to write a treatment for an acceptable version of Superstar Limo.
Superstar Limo!
The Imagineers had a few solutions. 1. Remove most of the references to paparazzi. 2. Remove any high-speed element by having the limos inch forward through the show building. And 3. Add more setting-specific jokes and gags. The idea wasn't good, and the Imagineers considered Superstar Limo to be dead. Unfortunately, if their job was to please the boss, they had done it a little too well. Eisner, who had been in the entertainment industry for decades, adored the inside jokes and Hollywood gags.
Jesus Christ, Eisner.
He greenlit the new, terrible version of the attraction. Imagineering, most likely baffled at what they now had to do, did their best to make the attraction work. This included scrapping the Chinese theater gift shop, and adding the theater as a show scene in the ride in order to fill time. After budgets were slashed even more, the theme building exterior was scrapped in favor of a cartoonish cutout look. This art style was also used within the ride itself. The only three-dimensional animated figures would be that of celebrities, but due to the lack of budget,
who was that, Jared Fogle? Who the fuck just popped out there?
The Disney company already had contracts with. Also, these were not animatronics, but barely animated figures with minimal, unconvincing movement. At some point,
who's that?
realized that
That's
the ride
Regis?
was going to be bad, so he made a few quick changes to save face. First, he removed a reference to DreamWorks animation that read
Maybe Tier 1
Jerks
Voorhees and the
Animation,
resub
which
got me.
referenced the ongoing feud between former president of Walt Disney Studios Jeffrey Katzenberg, who now worked for DreamWorks, and Eisner. Also, Eisner asked Imagineering to remove him from the ride, and the on-ride footage was replaced with a sleazy Hollywood agent barking orders at guests, proving that Superstar Limo foreshadowed more than one catastrophe. The retooled ride opened with California Adventure on February 8th, 2001. So was it as bad as they thought it would be? Yes. Yes, it was.
I want to see it. Let's fucking ride it, baby. Get me on there with a GoPro. Let's go.
Around Hollywood Boulevard, there's lots of fun.
Thanks to the Prime Red Man and Resub Win.
All geared to bring out the Hollywood
Richie.
in everyone. And if you've ever wanted to be a star, then you have to ride Superstar Limo.
The cartoon cutout exterior of Superstar Limo features a variety of landmarks from Los Angeles, such as Union Station, City Hall, and the Beverly Hills Hotel. One section features the world's shortest
Is Charlie
railway,
even human?
Los Angeles'
Nah, I'm a
Angels
level above
Flight.
human.
The
I'm a
railway,
gamer.
which was constructed in 1901, had recently reopened, but an accident resulted in the death of a passenger on February
Thanks,
1st,
Amy. What do you mean
2001,
5 out of 10?
exactly 1 week before California Adventure and Superstar
Gotta change
Limo
that scale.
reopened. However, the prominent reference on the queue's exterior would not be removed. Another interesting feature was the flower bed that was decorated to look like a pool. After making their way into the queue, guests would find themselves in the baggage claim area in the LAX airport. The inside jokes to California and the entertainment industry would begin with a female announcer giving instructions to arriving passengers.
Try not to fall asleep on the ride. That's the only rule.
No schmoozing.
Oh, hey, that was the only rule.
Guests
Fuck
would
yeah,
encounter
good
television
guess.
screens
I'm a
and
genius.
an entertainment news report featuring a horrifying puppet version
Thanks
of
to
the
Prime
late Joan
Cream.
Rivers. Rivers would describe Hollywood's next biggest star, who was set to arrive at LAX that day. The star turns out to be the guests entering the ride. In this queue area, there were more cartoon cutouts that helped foreshadow what a terrible experience guests were about to have. One example of this was a baggage carousel with packaged Oscars. After guests winded their way through the queue, they would approach the ground transportation section of the airport and board their limo, a sparkly, purple, cartoonish limo.
Hey, that looks
The
pretty
cast
cool
member
if you
guides
ask
them to
me.
their cars and tells them to enjoy their premiere.
Has a solid
Guests are then
whip.
sent on their way into their
This is
soon-to-be
fucking
original
drifting around
An
corners.
announcer tells them to keep their hands, feet, and egos in the limo at all times. Ha! The limo enters a dark tunnel.
Hey, don't be mean to the ride. What the fuck? It's not their fault. They didn't want to do it.
Despite being a creepy, gross puppet, this turned out to be the most realistic part of the ride.
Now don't be late, babe.
The first showroom is Beverly Hills, and Regis Philbin pops out
Thanks
of the
to Prime
door,
Manhattan,
fanning himself
Cringe
with
Burger,
money.
and
Next up,
Bugley.
Melanie Griffith with Antonio Banderas,
And Chase.
then immediately following, Cindy Crawford. And this is just the beginning. The next show scene is the Sunset
Pretty cool.
Strip. Here, guests get to see Tim Allen and Jackie Chan.
Tim
After this, guests enter
Allen!
a second tunnel
And
are
Jackie
reminded
Chan,
by their agents
yeah!
to be late. The third show scene is Bel Air, where guests can see Drew Carey with a handful of star maps. Guests also run into sponsors trying to get them to sign advertising deals. A third tunnel features another reminder from their agent before the Malibu show scene. Here, guests encounter Cher, standing in the corner of the scene as if she doesn't want to be there. The limo then enters the studio lots.
This
Guests
looks
encounter
awesome.
Paparazzi, screenwriters, and production assistants, all represented through cheap cutouts. After this, guests arrive for their premiere, where none other than Whoopi Goldberg greets them. Guests are shown an on-ride photo of themselves before entering the final tunnel, where their agent tells them that they are a superstar. And
Thanks to
that was
Resub Zell
Superstar Limo.
And Hookins. I don't know why he called it the worst attraction ever. That shit looked fucking awesome.
Go over to Superstar Limo.
Yeah.
You know why?
Why?
Well, because I'm on it.
Excellent.
That's right, because we're here at California Adventures, right next to Disneyland.
Exactly, located right next to Disney.
I've always wanted to see Tim Allen.
The picture of me at Superstar Limo looks exactly like you. You just can't believe it.
Really? It's got a
It's like a photograph.
All right.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. Now, this is not a scary fast ride, right?
No. This is just like a...
You don't get it. You can't just experience it with a video. You have to be in there and feel the hydraulics and the adrenaline of like being in the car as it slowly drives through. It's not the same with just a video.
This is a real easy ride to go on.
Yeah? Okay.
JCC in sync. Woo! Let's fucking get it.
There's Regis Philbin. And that's my final answer. Introduced by vivacious Melanie Griffith and dashing Antonio Banderas. Wow. And there's...
Yeah, I just need to smell Tim Allen coming up. Yeah. That's why you gotta be on the ride.
There's Tim Allen.
Hold your sides, everyone. It's Funny Man Tim Allen. Come to Bel Air.
Look at that.
How about a map to your house, Drew Carey?
Isn't that Robert Zemeckis?
Hello, party. Hold your breath now.
Whoa! Look at how much fun Drew's having.
all sleeping. Pretend we're sleeping. Pretend you're sleeping for the picture. Pretend you're sleeping.
Why, the always entertaining Cher. Movie.
Wow.
Wow, this is one hell of a ride.
Hollywood favorite, Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, we're having fun.
There might be no better way to illustrate the reaction the public had to the ride than the on-ride photos. It is no surprise that the ride was received negatively, with guests complaining
Can't
that they
imagine
waited
why.
a half hour to ride the cheap pop-up book. Superstar Limo was not the only issue. California Adventure as a whole was berated by the general public and critics alike.
But overall, the lines were so short at times out here.
I thought it was closed.
Exit Tier 1 Brad dude
The
in the
concept was
resub,
bad,
the Prime
the
Corruptions.
execution was worse, and
Resub
Superstar
con.
Limo was unforgivable. It is no surprise that on January 11th, 2000,
I do kind of Tibbs, I just don't watch it actively.
Superstar Limo was closed. Management had no replacement in mind. They just realized that guests visiting California Adventure would be a lot happier if they never experienced the attraction. The building sat abandoned in the Hollywood Pictures backlot for 4 years. Rumors circulated of various redressings that the ride could undergo. Jim Hill reported that the Imagineers were considering retooling the ride into Goofy's Superstar Limo,
Why?
where Goofy would drive guests through Hollywood, and the C-list celebrities would be replaced with classic animated
C-list? You're calling Jackie
off,
Chan
Disney
and
would take
Tim
about
Allen
100 Disney
C-list?
figures that had been placed in Disney stores throughout the United States.
I mean, the ride
and
wasn't
move them
good,
into
but let's
new
not discredit
showcases.
them.
Another idea was to reopen the ride as is, and over the course of a few months, introduce animatronics of the Muppets cast at various points in the ride. These characters would be wearing hard hats and be actively renovating Superstar Limo as guests rode through it.
Oh,
The
that
Muppets
sounds
would also
interesting,
be commenting
Seaman.
on how horrible the
I'll put it on
current
another
version of the
tab.
ride was. The finished product after the transformation would be Miss Piggy's Superstar Limo. Of course, neither of these ideas happened, and the building continued to sit abandoned. It wouldn't be until after Eisner stepped down from CEO in 2005 that the Superstar Limo space would receive a new attraction. As the first step in what would become a $1.5 billion
Sprixie.
expansion and
Yeah.
renovation to California Adventure, the new management team constructed the Pixar-themed dark ride, Monsters, Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue. The simple dark ride would take guests throughout the events of the first Monsters, Inc. film, and it was set to open on January 23rd.
Looks like shit. Boo. Where's Tim Allen?
is
Oh
not
wait,
the
Tim
end
Allen
of
actually does
Superstar
voice in this,
Limo's
doesn't he?
story. Oh no. The ride very much lives on. in
Tim
the
Allen is in
absolute
Monsters,
worst way
Inc., isn't he?
possible. Since the Monsters, Inc. dark ride was a quick fix.
No?
for the
Okay.
park,
Alright.
coming a year
Boo.
before
Fuck
the
this. No
major
Tim
expansion,
Allen.
It didn't have the budget to bulldoze the space and start over. Quite the opposite, really. In order to save money, the Imagineers decided to utilize as much of Superstar Limo as possible. This included retrofitting the cutout exterior with door designs, which actually matched the film's intro animation, repurposing the limos into Monstropolis taxis, reusing the track layout and some of the tunnel sequences, and there was one more thing. Oh yeah, they stripped the
click Link
C-list
Sonic, but
celebrity
wouldn't watch
figures
that
and dressed
tonight
them into
anyway.
various animatronics throughout the ride. Some of these Zombatronics are more obvious than others, and the Drew Carey and Jackie Chan figures are especially easy to spot. But don't worry,
Yeah!
most, if not every figure in the ride was reused in some way. While the new ride has received mixed reviews, and its inclusion of the previous attraction's assets is unsettling to say the least, it is a far better dark ride than Superstar Limo. While Disney might wish they could erase Superstar Limo from the memories of the unfortunate park guests that experienced it, it is still important to remember the ride and the other missteps of California Adventure. The story is a good reminder that even a company as big as Disney can still get themselves into financial difficulty, creative gridlock, and even some pretty wacky situations.
That is
On the
pretty
next
wacky.
Defunctland. Michael Eisner learns the differences between building a park in Tokyo and building a park in Paris.
God, the channel's so fucking good. Oh, it's so fucking good. This had a special place in my boners.
Great Scott! My name is Kevin Perger, and welcome to another edition in Defunctland. For background/context on this series, please visit thepurge.com with the link below. Before we get started with this episode, I have a couple of things to say/announce. First, no voice modulator. I've been trying to perfect this for the last 10 or so videos, and apparently I was just making it worse. So while this voice seems unnaturally high to me, hopefully you like it better. Also, we have a subreddit now. Please go subscribe to it so we can have post-episode discussions, more suggestions, and we can find more people to visit Defunctland. I will also be placing polls here from time to time, the first of which is for what we will name the land that Pretzel Dark Rides and Superstar Limo are currently in. If I find that a majority of you prefer Facebook, I might make a Facebook group, but I'm trying out the subreddit first. Alright, enough of me, back to Defunctland. Today, we will be attempting to resurrect Universal Studios' extinct attraction, Back to the Future, The Ride.
So good.
This attraction was at Universal Studios Florida from 1991 to 2007.
You sit in a DeLorean
Universal
and it
Studios
bumps
Hollywood
and moves
from
around.
1993
Doc
to
Brown's like,
2007,
holy shit.
and Universal Studios
We're
Japan
traveling
from
through time.
2001 to 2016. The ride was suggested
you're 6 years old and you're going, oh my god.
Alfie Davies, Beav Bennett,
God, it was good.
Chris Perez, Dave the Wave 007, Dean C., Dr. Doofus, Doug Jackson, Harper 414, Kelton Lane.
Alright, holy
Mickey
shit,
JC.
we don't need the whole credits here.
The Future Ride opened in 1991.
Let's run it.
The idea dates back all the way to 1986, where Peter Alexander and Steven Spielberg met at the Universal Studios backlot the day before the King Kong encounter would debut on the tram tour. Spielberg told Alexander of a conversation he had with Lucas while riding Disneyland's Star Tours attraction. Lucas told Spielberg that he was impressed with Disney's ride, and that he thought Universal couldn't ever match it. Spielberg took this as a challenge, and asked Alexander to adapt the Back to the Future trilogy that he produced into a ride. The idea of a Back to the Future roller coaster had been thrown around, but never developed, because Universal's creative team realized that the coaster would move too fast to tell the story effectively. However, the idea of a Star Tour style motion simulator would solve this issue. With the approval of Universal, Peter Alexander and his team began production on a Back to the Future simulator. Boss Film Studios, headed by Academy Award-winning visual effects artist Richard Edlund, was hired to create the ride's
my
film.
man.
He worked
Thanks
on
for
the
Back to the
project
Future,
with
big
artist
guy.
Greg McGillivray, who created this concept art for the ride dome. Alexander, Edlund, and their crews would periodically rent an empty Omnimax theater in Vancouver, left over from the 1986 World's Fair, to test the demo films Edlund's crew were creating. They even built a mock ride vehicle to experience the film with the motion effects. Boss Film supposedly spent a year in this production process, but they were not involved in the creation of the final ride film, and there are two theories as to why. One, which comes from Jim Hill Media again, claims that the plan was to open the Universal Studios Hollywood attraction at the same time as the Universal Studios Orlando version. Both parks would use some of their budget to fund the ride film, but somewhere during the construction of the Universal Studios Hollywood version of the ride, the foundation became off by 6 feet, which means that the joint construction contract between the two parks wouldn't work out. Universal Studios Florida went about rehiring the original contractors when Douglas Trumbull, another famous special effects supervisor, and his company Entertainment Design Workshop put in a lower bid than Boss Films. Universal then supposedly chose Trumbull over Edlund. The other theory is that Edlund's demo films were not good. Producer and screenwriter of the Back to the Future trilogy, Bob Gale, apparently claimed that it was absolutely terrible, because instead of an original story like the one that we got in the attraction, Edlund's film was essentially a flyover of the pre-existing story and sets from the movies. It was also said that Edlund's film had a weird fixation on blimps, and many different styles of blimps were supposed to fly around.
That's a weird fetish.
At some point, whether it be in Edlund's film or an early version of Trumbull's, Doc Brown was to have an evil twin brother that would serve as the antagonist, an idea that was changed in order to have a stronger connection to the movies with Biff. Regardless of why Edlund's film never came to fruition, the move to Trumbull might have been a good idea, because the ensuing ride film was fun, exciting, and technologically impressive. The 4-minute ride film was shot on 70mm film and was to be projected on an 80-foot diameter Omnimax dome screen. Omnimax is a type of IMAX theater that displays film shot with a wide fisheye lens.
I always thought that was going to be the future of movies growing up.
Centers, but Universal would use this technology to immerse riders in the
clearly
ride.
wasn't.
Many of the creators
dead,
of the film appeared in it either as an institute scientist or a security guard. The DeLoreans would of course be hydraulically powered and programmed to move with the film, an effect that Universal expected to cause motion sickness among many visitors, which actually didn't happen. Riders instead became incredibly thirsty after the ride, which Universal solved by adding water fountains near the exits.
God damn it.
In the end, Universal had constructed the largest ride simulator ever created.
It's so cool!
Universal MCA began promoting Back
such a
to
good
the Future
ride.
the ride in 1989 through the Back to the Future trilogy's anniversary publications, but the ride film wouldn't be completed until 1990. By now, I think we all should know the disaster that was the opening of Universal Studios Florida.
I wouldn't call it a
MCA
disaster.
wanted to
Bill
avoid
Cosby
this
was
with Back
there,
to the Future.
and he's
so the
never had
attraction's
anything
January
go wrong.
1991 opening would be pushed back to May to avoid another embarrassing
Tier 1
opening.
cipher.
The attraction did begin technical rehearsals in the early months of 1991, and 600,000 people had already tested the ride before its official opening date of May 2nd, 1991. And this was another star-studded premiere for Universal Studios Florida, but this time it wouldn't be embarrassing, because the ride worked perfectly.
Yeah,
the original
cool.
actors and crew of Back to the Future were thoroughly impressed by the ride, and so were the visitors. Universal Studios Florida had been struggling to match Disney MGM Studios at this time, and Back to the Future caused a surge in summer attendance. MCA claimed that they had topped Disney for the season in attendance, even though a lot of their visitors had free passes due to the technical failings of the past year. Regardless, the Back to the Future attraction, that took nearly 5 years from concept to completion and $40 million to make, had salvaged Universal Studios Florida.
Movies have taken us from the arena of the supernatural to the limitless ocean of outer space. Even earthbound exploration makes a quantum leap in time in the 1990 release Back to the Future.
No more Defunctland after this one. The last one.
Hello, anybody home? Huh? What are you looking at, butthead? Wait a second.
What do you mean no one reacted that way? Every time he said that, I had a big hearty giggle in the line.
Now that you're here, time travel volunteers, I can give you your pre-flight briefing. There's a lot you'll need to know if you're to successfully cross the space-time.
My god, I'm getting hit with super hard nostalgia. Jesus, Doc. I'm traveling back in time?
Hasta la bye-bye!
I rode this so many times. I'd make my parents just do circles. We'd do the ride once, get right back in line, run it again. Do that 3 or 4 times. I love this ride.
Doc Brown's Wonder Car and enter a new dimension for the most awesome ride of our lives.
The Back to the Future ride was the most staffed ride at Universal Studios, requiring 35 employees to guide guests to the cars, buckle them up, and ensure the ride went smoothly. However, the ride was very simple to start, and took just the push of a button. Guests wait outside the Institute of Future Technology, watching video of the Back to the Future trilogy, as well as the new footage of Doc Brown with other scientists and his other inventions. Once inside the Institute, it is explained to them that they would be volunteers in one of Doc Brown's time travel experiments. They were also informed that Biff, who had escaped from 1955 in Doc Brown's DeLorean, is somewhere in the space-time continuum. Doc shows images of his new 8-passenger convertible time machine, a way to explain the ride's cars.
We watched pretty much all of
Biff appears
BattleBots.
unbeknownst to Doc, asking the guests where the time machine is. Then, Heather, a receptionist at the Institute, and the same actress that played Spike in Back to the Future Part 2, tells guests to stand by for an announcement from Doc, who has been locked in his office by Biff.
But again, I'm not like a Back to the Future lore expert
sets
either,
off into the space-time continuum.
Just like the ride a
Doc
lot
explains that he needs the guests to travel to 88 miles per hour and bump Biff's DeLorean, which would open a time vortex that would send them back to the Institute. Guests are given some safety instructions before being guided into their DeLoreans. Once the doors close, the DeLorean hovers, speeds up to 88 miles per hour, and leaves the Institute. The Omnimax Dome created an incredibly
I hope he plays the entire video.
and the DeLorean had exceptionally jerky movements to sell it as well. The experience seemed as though the individual guests' cars were alone, but this belief would be broken if guests simply turned their heads to the left or right. They would see 3 other cars. There were actually
but nobody did
cars,
that. It was like
12 in
nice
each of the
honor.
ride's 2 domes.
Don't
there were
ruin
3
it.
tiers of DeLoreans, 4 per step, so each had the best possible view of the Omnimax screen. Also, the 2 separate domes ensured that the ride would never completely shut down. Doc and Biff frequently appear on the DeLorean screen as the 2 cars fly through time, visiting 2015 Hill Valley, and oh look, it's a styrofoam cup left on the model table. They then crash into the clock tower and visit the Ice Age, then the Cretaceous period, where they encounter a dinosaur and a lava fall. Biff loses control of his DeLorean and begs Doc to help him. The guests are able to successfully bump Biff, sending both back to the Institute, where Biff is taken by security. Doc thanks the guests and reminds them that the future is what they make it. The guests leave the Institute as the song Back in Time is played. Outside the Institute, there were replicas from the film, such as the hoverboards, as well as one of the modified DeLoreans and the locomotive from the 3rd movie. As I said, the ride was a huge success and a fan favorite. After problems with the construction of the Hollywood version were revised, the California attraction opened in 1993. 8 years later, a Japanese version of the ride opened at Universal Studios Japan. So why did it close? Well, theoretically, the lifespan of the ride was always limited, as they did travel to the future of 2015. So if the ride would have survived long after that, it would have seemed outdated. This
We've
wasn't a
never
strong
seen
reason, though, as it would still
2015
fit
though.
within the movies. The actual reason is that Universal wanted to move on to newer franchises, as they did with Jaws and Confrontation and many of their other previous
I'm glad they
attractions.
kept the Mummy ride, though.
Universal
That ride's
Studios
still so
Florida
good.
decided to shut down one of the 2 domes of the ride in 2007, claiming to be looking into future opportunities for it. The ride officially closed in Florida on March 30th, 2007.
Prime
The
Slammer
Hollywood
and
version
Reset
received
B-Man.
more of a proper send-off,
And
with
Max.
Christopher Lloyd and Bob Gale present at a special event to count down to the ride's closure and give away a DeLorean car. The Hollywood version officially closed on September 3rd, 2007. However, the Japan version of the ride wouldn't close until May 31st, 2016. The Back to the Future rides in the United States would be replaced with the Simpsons ride, a ride that followed a similar queue, plot, and ride experience, this time only themed after the Simpsons. A few notable differences are the move away from Omnimax to overlapping projections, as well as the less jerky, more smooth motion of the ride's cars. Also, the new ride would be completely animated, while Back to the Future's ride filmed used stop-motion animation and models to pull off its effects. The Simpsons rides would officially open
I don't
in
even
May
think
of
I've ever
2007.
been on the Simpsons ride.
The Japan version of the ride would be replaced with another simulator attraction, Despicable Me Minion Mayhem, which could already be found in the United States parks. The Japanese version of the ride opened in April of 2017.
My God.
While Back to the Future the ride can no longer be found at any Universal Studios park, it does live on in a few ways. One is an incredibly depressing cameo of Doc Brown in the pre-ride video sequence of the Simpsons ride, where he appears attempting to borrow money in a desperate attempt to save the Institute of Future Technology. Another way is the DVD produced of the ride's film. Sometime around 1993, an employee of the ride recorded the entire attraction, including pre-ride and on-ride footage, and began selling bootlegs of it, some of which can still be found online today. 2 years after the Back to the Future rides closed in the United States, Universal decided it might be a profitable idea to release all of the ride footage on a special version of the Back to the Future film. The released film is unfortunately pretty terrible, because it is cut down or cropped quite a bit from the IMAX version, has lost frames and has flickers, and includes a horrible, inaccurate virtual dashboard of the DeLorean. That said, there are people on the internet attempting to recreate the original IMAX reel, and they are also doing some other interesting things that I'm going to talk about in a moment.
What?
So that is the history of Back to the Future
Wait,
the
wait,
ride.
so we have
I
like
want to
some
take another
serious
minute
Back
for
to
me
the
and answer
Future
a very
fans out
popular
there.
question, which is Defunctland a real thing?
They're just
My answer to
rebuilding
this
the
is
entire
currently
ride
no,
from scratch.
but I want it to be.
Someone wanted to see this. I don't know Defunctland. Or, I'm sorry, I don't know Action Park. Open once again. At least I don't think.
Anna Gilligan is there this morning. Hello, Anna.
Those that did not want to ride could pay to use a stationary cannon from the outside. Maintenance employees attempting to fix broken down
Easy Tier 1
subject
cozy.
to fire from the rowdy guests,
And yeah,
making the attraction
appreciate it
a
again, Ollie. I'll
nightmare
queue
to
it
work
up.
at. The other two land-based
After this.
Motor World attractions were the Lola cars and the Super Go-Karts.
Oh,
Both
here
of which
comes
were kart race attractions.
the
The
sneeze.
Super Go-Karts were driven on a small loop. The carts themselves were designed to max out at 20 miles per hour, but the employees
Getting, like,
found that
YouTube
sticking a
pranked
test
by a
ball with the governor
sneeze.
device allowed the cart to go as fast as possible, with the new maximum speed being around 50 miles an hour. Head-on collisions frequently sent guests to the hospital, and the fumes from the engines overwhelmed riders at times. The Lolo cars were mini open cockpit race cars driven on a longer track, and they cost
Speed
an
racer
additional
design,
charge
pretty
to
cool.
ride. Their maximum speed could also be tampered with by park employees.
Actually, Tier
These
1
were also
Big
used
Ten
after hours by
and
the
the resubbed
workers, sometimes
Cup of
being
Noodles.
taken off the track and driven on the nearby highway. There were two water rides in Motor World. The super speedboats were driven in a small circle around an island in a pond that also had a large population of snakes in it. The guests would often attempt to
What?
bump nearby boats, as if they were on Motor World's other water attraction, bumper boats. These were boats placed in a small pool and were designed to withstand guests crashing into one another. These were known to leak gasoline, which once required a guest to be examined after too much fuel leaked on their skin. The
Oh,
boats
nice.
were also incredibly small, and riders with long legs had to position their feet off the side of the boat.
This place does look fucking
This led
awesome,
to
though,
injuries
to
and
be
bone
fair.
fractures after collisions. Finally, Motor World had two airbase attractions. One was Space Shot, which was a typical drop tower ride and was one of the safest rides at the park, given it was only open for Action Park's last operating year. The second air ride was another upcharge attraction, Slingshot, which was also fairly safe. This ride was a common amusement park and carnival ride, in which guests were shot up on two bungee cords and flipped upside down as they flew through the air. There's no doubt that Motor World had its dangerous attractions, but this is just the beginning of what Action Park has in store. Another section of the park was... Many
I mean, to be fair, that part of the park looks awesome.
Sometimes labeled the Alpine Center.
Thanks to Resub
These
T-Bros.
included the aforementioned Alpine slides, as well as a bungee jump titled the Snapple Snap Up
Jesus, Cozy, that's
Whippersnapper
extreme.
Ride. Originally having 2 jump stations and then later 4, guests could jump off the tower for an additional fee. A skate park also had a short run at Action Park.
Thanks to Prime
It was
Gamer.
poorly designed, as it was surrounded by concrete and had uneven edges, which led to many injuries during its existence. Interestingly, Action Park also had an attraction entitled the Action Park Gladiator Challenge,
What?
partially based off of the popular American Gladiators TV show. This included obstacle courses and jousting matches against the Action
This
Park
sounds like the best park of all
Finally,
time.
Action Park had its own monorail called the Transmobile. This went to the Ski Lodge, the Alpine Center, and to Motor World.
What the fuck?
So far, Action Park has proved to be dangerous, but where are the absolutely terrifying rides? Where are the rides that are so insane that their mere existence is unbelievable? Moreover, where are the water slides?
Yeah, if they just got rid of Waterworld, everything else seems
This section
perfect.
put the action in Action Park. Waterworld had it all. It was home to the tidal wave pool, a 100 feet by 200 feet pool that could hold anywhere between 500 and 1,000 people. The pool's floor was slanted, and the further a guest went in it, the deeper it got. Waves went 20 minutes on, 10
There's
minutes
nothing
off,
more
and they could reach
uncomfortable than
height
like a
of over
communal
3
pool
feet.
like
This
that.
was challenging for swimmers
Piss
of all
and
skill
shit all
levels,
over the place
as the
in the
pool was
water.
hard to read, and the fresh water was more difficult to swim in than salt water. A dozen lifeguards were on duty at the pool, and they would have to save around 30 people on a busy day. The Tarzan swing was a heavily advertised attraction in which guests would swing on a 20-foot cable over a pool. This spring-fed pool was so
Thanks
cool
again,
that
Sub Julian.
lifeguards would have to rescue guests that could not swim after the shock of the cold water. This was also a popular attraction for men to pull down their pants or women to pull up their tops for the line of people to swim. The appropriately named Aqua Scoot gave guests a
Of
slide,
course.
with which they would slide down an
That's what I wanna
assembly line
do, show
style
my dick
roller
to a
coaster
bunch of
hurtling
kids at a
into
water
shallow
park.
pool
Yeehaw.
that they would skip across. If the guest was not in an ideal position, it would get caught under the water, sending the rider crashing forward. There were originally a pair of these slides, each 30 feet long, but a third slide was eventually added. The diving cliffs had two jumping bases, one 23 feet and the other 18 feet tall, with the pool below being 16
This
feet.
park is
The pool was
fucking
also for
nuts. It's like
non-jumpers,
something I'd
some
make
of
in
which were
Roller
unaware of
Coaster
the cliffs,
Tycoon.
which resulted in collisions.
I'll
There was
just
only
have a
one lifeguard on
500-foot
duty who had to work
dive into
extra hard to
shark
make sure
infested
that
water.
No one was at the bottom of the pool. The super speed water slides, also known as Geronimo Falls, were a pair of high-speed vertical water slides. One of them was steeper than the other, and both were dangerous. Near these was the safer Kamikaze, which was a more traditional tube slide. The kayak experience was pretty self-explanatory, and used underwater fans to simulate water rapids.
And absolutely
This was dangerous,
alligators.
but that goes without saying at this point. A similar ride, the Roarin' Rapids, allowed guests to ride in a 1 or 2 person raft down a similar river. The Surf Hill had riders slide down a multi-laned, multi-hill slide on a mat.
God damn,
Riders could
that seems
easily
nuts.
cross over to the adjacent lanes and cause
never mind.
collisions. And the 7th hill, nicknamed
Pretty
the
lame.
Backbreaker, had an additional hump that would send riders flying.
Oh, that's the one, yeah.
The Colorado River Ride was
Fuck
another
yeah.
ride, this time
Holy
allowing up to 4
shit.
people, and it went through the wooded area of the park. At one point, the riders would come to a fork in the river and had to choose between 2 paths.
Thanks
The
to
first
Resub
path
Alpaca,
took guests under
the
a
Prime Links,
waterfall and a
and Resub
series of
Logi.
tunnels. The
And
second
Jar
path
and
included a
Logi.
waterfall and another fork, with one path being steeper than the other. The ride also included a foot-tall jump that would allow riders and their raft a short airtime. The
Yeah, I've heard of
Aerodonium
that,
was a
Eddie.
skydiving simulator that caused injuries when guests
That's
would try to
scary.
stop their falls with their arms. Waterworld also had a variety of other typical water slides and pools that were less notable, but there's one in particular that has yet to be mentioned. This is the attraction that made Action Park the most infamous, the Cannonball Loop. A tubed water slide with a vertical
Same
loop
jig, I hate
similar
that
to that
shit.
of a roller coaster. It was rumored that during the testing of the attraction, Mulvihill offered $100 to employees who were willing to try it. Test dummies apparently came out of the loop without their heads. When it was open, guests would be weighed, hosed down, and given a set of instructions to decrease the possibility of injury. A hatch was added to the top of the loop to assist stuck riders that could not make it all the way through the slide. Many guests that completed the loop would come out at the bottom, suffering from bloody noses or other injuries, either from hitting the top of the loop or the impact on the way down. The
That sounds
Cannonball
about
Loop
right.
is indicative of a larger issue with Action Park, as many of the other attractions were poorly crafted by designers that were less than engineers, and most were designed to minimize cost rather than maximize safety.
And
The rides
maximizing
became even
fun.
more
Like,
dangerous
these
when
rides
paired
look
with the fact that
fucking
the park sold
cool.
alcohol at many of the convenience stands, often to minors.
These are some
There was even a
Imagineers.
microbrewery near Motor World. Many of the guests visiting the inexpensive park came from low-income areas, and did not have the necessary swimming skills to navigate some of the attractions and pools. Action Park also heavily marketed to Spanish populations, but there were no translations or translators for the guests when they visited,
Thanks to
so
2-1
explaining
Pasta Boy.
safety instructions was virtually impossible.
You already know that Action
Probably
Park
can't watch
is the
that
most
around.
innovative and exciting
This is gonna be
ride.
some jizzle.
The Alpine Slides, Grand Prix race cars, and spectacular water rides. But Action Park means more than just great rides. It means super live shows, fantastic summer festivals, and scrumptious food and drink, including an authentic German brewery. Come to Action Park.
Honestly,
because the
Action
rides
Park
are
has it
the
all.
only thing that's great. Labor Day.
Only 6 deaths were
September 6th
recorded
and
here?
7th.
Reopen.
The majority of those employees
I
were
wouldn't go, but the
teenagers and were not
existence makes
equipped
me
to handle
happy.
the rowdy guests at the park. So on any given day, you could have an overcrowded water park filled with drunk teenagers that couldn't swim, riding shoddily built attractions supervised by teenagers that may or may not be able to communicate with them. It is no wonder what happened
Prime
next.
Exotic and resub Knife and Jeff in the Prime Break.
On July 8th, 1980, a male employee was riding the Alpine slide when his cart went off the track. He hit his head on a rock during the crash, killing him. He was only 19. Two years later, on July 24th, 1982, a 15-year-old guest was overcome by the waves of the tidal wave pool and drowned. On August 1st, a mere week later, a 27-year-old guest was riding the kayak experience when he was trying to re-enter his kayak after falling out. When doing this, he made contact with the live wiring that powered the underwater fans. The electrocution sent him into cardiac arrest, and he passed after being rushed to the hospital. 2 years later, in 1984, a guest died on the Tarzan swing after a heart attack, supposedly due to the unexpected shock from the cold water. That same year, on August 27th, a 20-year-old drowned in the tidal wave pool. And on July 19th, 1987, another guest drowned there, giving it the nickname the Grave Pool. These deaths are tragic, and often overshadowed.
Yeah, that's the worst place to die, surrounded by other people's piss. Your sarcophagus becomes a literal toilet.
Other injuries,
at a communal tidal pool.
And also
Holy
the lax
shit!
regulations New Jersey had for amusement and water parks. Great American Recreation was even able to expand the Action Park brand to other parts of the country, opening Pocono Action Park in Tannersville, Pennsylvania in 1980, and Action Mountain in Pine Hill, New Jersey in 1984.
Get wet. Get wet. Action Mountain. Feel the thrill as you zoom
Fuck!
into the black hole.
I want to get wet and wild. Let's fucking go!
While the kids play in our fun-filled kiddie area, cool off in our huge swimming pool.
Thanks, Brian Tim and resub Shrekery.
Grand Prix track. Get
Hey, appreciate it, Jan. Thanks to Prime, Pit fan.
At Action Mountain in Pine Hill, New Jersey. It's awesome.
Pocono Action Park had many repeat attractions as Action Park, and was closed in 1991. Action Mountain ran into some financial difficulties with the IRS and the town it was located in, and was closed in 1986.
Before WoW, he was
So
just doing backstrokes at Action
While
Park
Action
title
Park and
pool.
Mulvihill were able to avoid lawsuits with many of the accidents and deaths, the two deaths in 1984 stemmed cases that rightfully plagued the park with a variety of legal problems. Mulvihill eventually pled guilty to 5 charges of insurance fraud. He and his associates claimed that the park saw over 1 million guests a year, and therefore the death toll was comparatively low. The local ER, on the other hand, said that they would have to treat 5 to 10 guests on some days. In response to the high amount of guests visiting the hospital, Action Park bought...
What are you complaining about? You're making a lot of money off that.
Despite all of these
5 to 10 guests a day?
the Action Park wouldn't come until 1996, and it was actually due to Great American Recreation's financial issues and not the park itself. On September 2nd, 1996, Action Park ended its final season, still with the hope that it would reopen the next year. However, Great American Recreation's bankruptcy made it impossible for Action Park to continue operations, so it didn't reopen. After this, the ski resort and Action Park were handed from investor to investor, undergoing renovations for 2 years before reopening in 1998 as Mountain Creek. Safety was a priority under this management, and a valiant effort was put forth to distance Mountain Creek from Action Park's reputation. However, in 2010, Mountain Creek underwent a bankruptcy of its own, and the water park and ski resort was sold to the Mulvihill family. 2 years after this, in 2012, Eugene Mulvihill passed away, and his son Andrew Mulvihill took over ownership of the park. 2 years later, in 2014, Mountain Creek was rebranded back to Action Park. The park reopened many of its classic attractions, and started construction on new, terrifying ones. The Skycalibur was another attempt at a 360-degree vertically looping water slide, although it used technology to enhance safety. From my knowledge, it is yet to open at the park, and there's almost no information on its status. The new Action Park tried to use nostalgia to draw guests back for 2 years, before in 2016 it was renamed back to Mountain Creek, in order to once again get away from the negative connotation of Action Park. Early this year it was announced that Johnny Knoxville would be producing, writing, and starring in a film inspired by Action Park, but it was not shot on location. Death is heartbreaking, especially in environments designed for happiness and joy. Despite 6 people losing their lives there, Action Park is not remembered for its death toll. It is remembered for and by the kids that grew up with it and survived it. It is seen as a place where the quote-unquote popular and brave teens hung out. The fact that it was referred to as Traction Park or Class Action Park doesn't matter, because its inherent
That's a cool name, Class Action Park. That's pretty good.
The burns, bruises, and the fractured tibias were a rite of passage for its former guests.
Yeah. Do we have any Action Park survivors in the chat?
Roller coaster at Disney in California or at Universal in Florida? Well, welcome to Vernon, New Jersey. Were you able to survive Action Park?
You going to bed? I'll say goodnight in a sec. That was super fucking cool. It makes me want to go to Action Park.
Hello, I am Kevin Perjurer, and welcome to the first video in my new series, Defunctland, where I will be creating my very own amusement park using attractions that are no longer operating. For background/context on this series, please visit thepurge.com with the link below. Today we will be attempting to resurrect Disney World's past attraction, ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter.
We'll see.
This show, found exclusively in Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland from 1994 to 2003, has a long and fascinating backstory, so let's get right into it. When Michael Eisner became the CEO of Disney in 1984,
he sold that game with that reaction.
He attempted to do this by beginning his
God, that was a monster, that multiplayer. What a game.
He invited his teenage son, Breck, to come along with him. After a tour of Disneyland, Breck expressed the sentiment that the park lacked a cool factor. This worried
I don't know
him,
if everyone
and
on
he
this
began
ride called, but we'll
conducting
see.
exit surveys to determine if the parks were failing teenagers.
It was good?
The
Fuck no.
consensus was that
I didn't
Disney
enjoy that
lacked
game
thrill
at all.
rides, but instead of going the typical approach of adding roller coasters, he decided that he wanted to add exciting and intense shows to the parks. This is when the George Lucas that everyone loves, not the George Lucas that everyone hates, entered the picture. He began collaborating with Eisner to add attractions like Star Tours and the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular. This gave Eisner the idea to incorporate another sci-fi movie into the parks, Ridley Scott's Alien. Because I know when I think of Disney, I think of this.
That's pretty cool. I love the thought process.
It's safe to say that this wasn't an unorthodox choice for an attraction at a Disney park.
Can't click
the
links,
concept
Big Z.
was, believe it or
I'm
not,
assuming it's Street
more
Beef stuff.
terrifying than the theme. The Alien ride was to be like Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger spin.
Oh
but
yeah,
instead
that's
of
the only
shooting
good ride
laser
there.
beams at Zurg, you're in pitch black darkness shooting shotguns at murderous aliens. The head Imagineers were appalled by the idea, and they convinced Eisner that this would be a horrific addition to Tomorrowland. This angered him, but he decided to give up on the ride. However, a small group of young Imagineers weren't ready to let the idea go, and they found a solid excuse to pitch it again. An attraction called Mission to Mars was in dire need of retooling. Mission to Mars opened in 1975,
I will not be eating pictures.
replacing the similar attraction Flight to the Moon.
Sounds
Flight
terrible.
to the Moon, originally named Rocket to the Moon, was one of the original Disneyland attractions, and all three variations of the show were very basic. Guests would enter the theater, which had a circular design with screens on the floor and the ceiling, simulating a trip to outer space.
People
By the
dumped loved
1990s,
ones'
it was viewed by
ashes on the
guests as
Haunted
quite
Mansion
boring.
ride.
The new Imagineers hoped
sweet.
that they could replace Mission to Mars with a show starring Xenomorph, the
Sorry,
alien
NIT.
from Alien. Eisner loved the idea, but the head Imagineers did not. The head Imagineers decided to go to George Lucas, who agreed that Alien was not a good fit for the park, although it could have just been the fact that he was jealous of the film's success. You know, he gets like that sometimes.
There's no way to know what's going to happen. You know, we're never going to beat Titanic. Nobody can.
So Lucas convinced Eisner that he should drop the Alien tie-in and make the attraction less frightening. Eisner told the small team of Imagineers to continue with the attraction with the help of Lucas, but without the use of the franchise. This original attraction would be called ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter. In 1994, test audiences experienced the show for the first time, and they were horrified. Many
Cowards,
complained that it was too scary, but Eisner didn't agree. He was concerned that small flaws in the show, such as plot points and timing, were holding it back from being as scary as it could be. The attraction closed after a few weeks of testing for adjustments, but Eisner essentially gave up on the project 6 months into the retooling for unknown reasons. Nevertheless, he allowed ExtraTERRORestrial Alien Encounter to open.
Scott, the Magic Kingdom as a whole.
I really want to see this fucking ride now.
The all-new Tomorrowland. Hold on to your seat as Scott gets set for a chilling visit with an extraterrestrial.
Fear not, people of the future. We are simply visitors from your
Thanks, Resub,
past.
Lactual, and Trulo.
We are friendly. Hi. And we come looking for scary attractions. We do.
I miss
I'll check
when
it out,
Disney
Mumbo,
World
for sure.
promos were hosted by drunk dads instead of annoying kids.
Hi, where are you from?
London, England.
All right, so you are an alien.
Hey, Steven.
Yes.
Man, this guy is trashed.
I know you're all a little nervous, but I'm sure there's nothing to worry about. All right, so just this is part of the chair. Hopefully.
Holy shit!
Alright, everybody, here comes Mr. Alien.
God, this guy fucking sucks. Oh God! Real glass? Actually, just blows real glass into the crowd. That'd be nuts.
It's not good. I mean, it's it's great, but it's not good. There's something loose in here. It's over there. Sorry, it's over there.
So, what is the ride?
No, I'm not going to tell you what happened. But you don't want to miss it. Because it's not going to miss you. Anybody seen my shoe?
So the attraction was broken into 3 parts. Guests enter the Tomorrowland Interplanetary.
I'm confused. So you just sit there and like watch the alien escape
at the center. These are quite humorous. Mission to Mars, History or Hoax, referencing the previous attraction Mission to Mars while also taking a shot at NASA truthers. Championship Pet Show with the tagline, because when it comes to your space pet, what goes down must not come up. And the Walt Disney Company's Pan-Galactic Stockholders Meeting. Then XS Tech is introduced as the current holder of the convention space. The video has an introduction by the company's president, L.C. Clench, portrayed by Jeffrey Jones. That detail becomes quite important later.
After all,
if something can't be done with excess, then it shouldn't be done at all.
This video is quite eerie, and white noise is pumped into the room to add to the effect. The next area is a demo hosted by a robot named Sir, short for Simulated Intelligence Robotic. He shows the audience an example of XS Tech's teleportation technology, the focus of the main show they are about to see.
No, you may not get out. You're a lucky volunteer.
During the 6 months in between the soft open and the grand opening, some parts of the pre-show were tweaked to be more sinister in an attempt to scare children away before the real horror.
Yeah, take that, dumbass, milk-drinking, diaper-wearing kids.
Technology on a cute alien named Skippy. Sir tells Skippy that he is going to teleport him across the room. This has some pretty gruesome results.
Phase 1 of the process has begun. Disintegration into molecular components. And here's the little skipper now. Oh, shut up, Scruffy. You're not burned. You've just got a healthy glow.
Now comes time for the main show, which is difficult to describe. Special restraints were added to the Mission to Mars season. The restraints lower and a video begins on the screen attached to the walls around the room. 2 XS Tech employees begin to introduce the demonstration, but are interrupted by Clench, still voiced by Jeffrey Jones, still important later, who claims that he doesn't want to teleport someone in the audience, but instead himself.
Yes, very.
Hello, everyone. I recalculated our plan. You see, if we bring one of you
So this is all
here,
the pre-show to the alien ride?
Meet one of you. However, if I'm teleported to Earth, I can meet all of you, shake each hand, and personally answer all your questions about the wonders of excess. I'll be with you in just a moment. Prepare yourselves for an unforgettable encounter.
During the
process, they put a lot of effort into pre-shows. I never noticed.
An alien from a foreign planet is transported into the room instead. The alien breaks out of the teleportation tube, and the power surge causes the lights to go black. Certain special effects enhance the attraction's experience. For one, each chair is surrounded sound speakers that assist in visualizing the location.
Yeah, I know it's Lilo and Stitch now.
Also, water is misted on the audience to simulate the creature's saliva, or excess blood, as he eats the employees. The final main show has some more changes that weren't in the original version. For instance, many audiences didn't realize that the alien had the ability to fly, so dialogue was added to make it more clear.
It's been long. Since when
I can't see a
does
fucking
have
thing.
Wings?
Wink.
Also, Eisner noticed that the audience was screaming over integral plot details, so the ride's pace was changed and this line was added.
People of Earth, quiet! Listen to me, please! Don't scream! If you remain perfectly quiet, it probably won't eat you.
The experience.
Eisner seems so personally offended that his plot isn't working that well.
Shields barricaded in. The house lights come on and guests exit the area. and that was Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter. So what is there now? Well, in 2004, it was replaced by Stitch's Great Escape, essentially a kid-friendly version of Alien Encounter. Instead of the alien licking you and eating people, Stitch burps in your face. Many fans of Alien Encounter
I must have went on the
and it never became
Alien Terrestrial at some point.
In fact, in September 2016, it was announced that the attraction would become seasonal only, as opposed to daily as it had been for 12 years. So why was it closed? Well, no one really knows, but there are some good guesses out there. Most obviously, the experience was absolutely terrifying, and many guests complained that it was inappropriate for the Magic Kingdom. Also, Lilo and Stitch was a huge hit in 2002, so the change makes sense from a marketing standpoint when you consider that Alien Encounter didn't have a movie tie-in, and there had recently been a welcome addition of a cartoon alien to Disney's character lineup.
True, that all makes sense.
The most interesting reason for its closure is Jeffrey Jones. Yes, now that is important. He stars in the footage throughout the attraction as Clench.
Yeah, someone recommended him a while ago,
one year before Alien Encounter's closure, Jones was arrested for child pornography and luring and photographing an underage boy.
Oh.
This is a huge no-no for Disney.
I would think so. A pretty big no-no for society, too, in fact.
This is speculated as one of the reasons Alien Encounter was nixed. So that is the history of Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter. Click on the link below if you're interested in learning where the remains of Alien Encounter are today.
What a crazy
how
conclusion.
I'm going to get them back, and where I
And this scary ride was closed because the actor in the pre-show was a pedophile. Just as you would have expected if you'd been paying attention. What a twist.
Salutations, my name is Kevin Perjurer, and welcome to another edition in Defunctland. For
Hey,
background/context on this series, please visit thepurge.com with the link below. Today we will be attempting to resurrect our first non-Disney attraction, Jaws the Ride,
Tier 1
that
Zillow
operated
Trans.
in Universal Studios Florida from 1990 to 2012. This is also our first viewer-suggested addition to the park, so thank you to Cinematic Psycho Productions for the comment. To all of you Disney fanatics that don't care about Universal Studios, stick with me, because there will be plenty of Disney history weaved throughout this story.
Universal is so much better than Disney, though.
In the 1960s,
Disney
Universal,
fucking sucks
who at the
unless you
time
just
was owned
love
by
Disney
multimedia
movies.
company MCA, completely refurbished the Universal Studios tour, creating the beginning of Universal Studios Hollywood as we know it today. This put them in direct competition with other LA-based amusement park, Disneyland. As Universal Studios Hollywood continued to add additions to their park, including a Jaws encounter during the studio tour, MCA kept a close eye on Disney. When word got around that Disney was planning on operating a new theme park in Florida, MCA followed closely behind, with a new studio tour in Orlando in an attempt to attract some of the tourists that would be traveling to Walt Disney World. This began the ongoing feud between Universal Studios and Disney. I won't dive fully into the feud, as I would be touching on the history of future Defunctland attractions, but just to give you an idea, yeah, they're basically the same thing. So Disney MGM
Except Universal's much better.
Construction in 1985, obviously angering Universal as Disney had copied many aspects of their plan and already existing park. However, luckily for Universal and MCA, they had recently found a developer for their Orlando park. They had also found a creative partner, Steven Spielberg.
Hey, good
if you
guy.
watched the first episode
Good guy
of
to have on your
you'll
team.
remember that George Lucas was heavily involved in the development of attractions for Disney at this time. And if you don't already know, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg are very close friends, who found themselves in competition with one another in the late 1980s due to this feud. Universal decided not to make their Orlando park the same as their Hollywood tram tour out of fear of being accused of copying Disney. They decided to instead focus more on film-based attractions, such as Confrontation and Jaws the Ride. The creative head of Universal
Jaws
Studios
was one of the first
Florida was
ones? I didn't know
former
that.
Disney Imagineer and Steven Spielberg's college roommate, Peter
Right, sucks.
Alexander.
Sucked.
Universal had no
That
experience creating epic attractions like Disney's, so the management was worried about the concept of the Florida park. Alexander spearheaded the ride, and Ride and Show Engineering agreed to produce it.
Please reset
The first
Liv,
version of the
Axe,
ride
Toe,
cost
and Gladdy.
$30 million to make
Two
in the
gift
late
subs, Ryan.
1980s, which,
Thank you, Ryan.
factoring in inflation, yeah, it was expensive, and the results were interesting. The original Jaws ride took guests on a pontoon boat captained by a employee who would guide the boat on a tour of Amity, the town in Jaws.
Yeah.
And shockingly, the guests spot a
Shark! 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 Shark!
The most exciting thing that ever happened on this ride is when I almost fell off.
In the boathouse
That's literally the only like exciting moment of this ride I ever experienced.
The robot shark would actually take a bite out of the boat and attempt to spin it. This would have been amazing, except for it almost never worked correctly. Like the robot made for the movie Jaws, the Jaws ride sharks experienced a variety of problems. First, sometimes the robot shark would not lunge out of the water to grab the boat. Second, if it did, the robot's shark teeth would sometimes damage the boat because for some reason they used real shark teeth. In the finale of the original ride, the skipper would shoot the shark with a grenade launcher. It would then explode and chunks of shark would fly out of the water.
Yeah, I remember that.
Fly out of a small air cannon and then would be filtered back in and recirculated. The sharks were guided by computers and could swim at 20 feet per second. It was an impressive ride, but did it work as they had planned? No.
Fuck no.
The answer is no.
That shit, when you got on the Jaws ride back in my day, what you were doing is just taking a boat ride to just relax. Literally nothing would happen, and half the time your boat guide wouldn't say a word.
This little New England village seems like any
This shit was terrible.
in summer. Young men thronging around the shooting gallery, people basking in the sun, crowds taking photographs.
Thanks to
of
some
a
Stewie,
great white
Heisenberg,
shark.
and Decomposed, and Scott Steiner.
White shark. But this is a movie set.
The Mummy ride is still good.
Turns an elemental fear of the water.
It gives a big wiener.
To screaming terror. But today the sea is calm. It's a good day for a boat ride.
Jesus Christ! Good lord!
GM Studios opened on May 1st, 1989, and a year later,
What they should have done is just put real sharks in there.
June 7th,
Fuck it.
1990. Opening day was a star-studded
Not that they
event.
do anything,
Celebrities
even if
such
they
as
were real. I
Sylvester
mean,
Stallone,
just
Steven
fucking swim
Spielberg,
around.
and Bill Cosby were in attendance. The opening was a huge success for people that like to watch everything go wrong.
I hope this cuts. This is a lot thicker than what we rehearsed with.
The power went out just hours before the opening. Many of the attraction's automation systems weren't operating, and Jaws had to shut down due to a thunderstorm after a few hours of operation.
Oh no.
Steven Spielberg was rumored to be stuck on the ride during this time. The following few days of opening did not go much better. Jaws was still not operating correctly.
Good.
One skipper was quoted as saying, "Imagine explosions over there." These problems would continue with the ride. At times, Universal would inform guests in the morning that Jaws would not be open that day, regardless of whether it was or not. Universal tried to stay positive about the ride, but it became apparent that it wasn't operating properly. On top of this, they would be faced with a lawsuit as during one voyage, a guest fell off the boat and into the water with Jaws. He was on a family trip with his children and were obviously mortified that their father would be eaten. Worse, he fell in one of the 10 feet deep areas where the sharks are held. The other areas of the ride were only 4 feet deep. If you haven't figured it out already, this means that he was incredibly close to the mechanics of the ride. He even recalled that the shark was swimming right toward him. When the employee managed to get him back on the boat, the other guests clapped, thinking it was all just part of the show. He sued Universal for $1 million.
That's it?
This, along with the fact that the ride shut down almost daily, helped Universal come to the conclusion that it was time to drastically change the ride. The original version of Jaws closed after only 2.5 months of operation. It is safe to say that Universal and MCA were mad. They sued Ride & Show Engineering for not designing the ride properly. Ride & Show claimed that their handiwork was not at fault, and that Universal did not give them enough time. Ride & Show even said that they were looking forward to the case, so that they could prove that Universal messed up and not them. They later settled out of court, with Ride & Show commenting, "Basically, Universal didn't have any experience with a ride like this. If we had built something like this for Disneyland, Disneyland maintenance would have taken it over and made it work." Oh no, they didn't. Universal was now determined to get Jaws operating correctly as soon as possible. And after more delays and more problems, they finally settled on a 1993 opening date. They hired Totally Fun Company to redesign the ride.
My favorite ride at Universal is Men in Black.
Alexander. They also hired a variety of contractors to complete the many different aspects of the attraction to ensure that it was done correctly the second time around. The new story incorporated elements from both Jaws and Jaws 2. In the new ride, the
Shark! 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 Shark!
No, fuck!
would not bite the boat or be blown to pieces, but there would instead be a gas explosion, and the shark would be killed after it bit a high-voltage wire, such as in the end of Jaws 2. This was Peter Alexander's final suggestion before he left the project to go to the other end of the park and produce shows for
I don't think I ever wrote it when it was like that, to be honest. I only remember the original.
Pyrotechnics testing it purposefully designed it so that the guests could feel the heat without getting burned.
Oh, actually, I do remember this.
They accomplished this, as guests regularly complained that they had been burned by the fire, mostly by those that had already had sunburns from a day at the park. The main issue with the original attraction was that the water made it difficult for the robot sharks to go from a complete standstill to lunging out of the water. Universal decided to hire Oceaneer International, a company specializing in products that assist in deep-sea exploration, to build the sharks. They were able to accomplish this, although the detail of the sharks does not match that of the original attraction. But who cares about details if you can't see them because the ride is always closed? An interesting aspect of the remodeling was the testing phase, because in order to view changes made to the attraction, the technicians would have to take a round trip on the boat as they could not go in reverse. This means that they were taking trip after trip through the ride to witness minor changes. With all of these contractors on board and $40 million later, Universal was able to complete the second version of the attraction for a soft opening in 1993, using the term technical rehearsals until 1994.
Thanks use of Absolute and the Bit cigarette. I mean, it was a dog shit ride, though.
No survivors. And you thought this only happened.
Man, I can't believe that dude fucking fell out into the mechanics. That's nuts.
So the final
hopefully he got his $1 million.
Like this. As you waited in line, you were taken through the boathouses of Amity, including TV screens playing WJWS13. It had a lot of different programming with numerous references to the film and other movies as well. Once you were done waiting in line, you board one of Captain Jake's boats with the skipper to tour the island of Amity. You take off with your tour guide explaining the shark attacks of 1974 that were later turned into a hit movie. They also point out the houses of some of the characters of the Jaws movies, until suddenly they get a call of distress from Amity 3. The skipper tries to see what is going on and finds Amity 3 sinking. Then the guests see
Shark! 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 Shark!
The skipper pulls out the grenade launcher, not realizing that it is actually loaded at first, and fires at the monster.
Oh god!
The skipper misses a second time before hiding in a boathouse to wait for Chief Brody. The shark tries to break in, and the skipper struggles to escape, but does just in time. Chief Brody tells the skipper that he'll be there in 10 minutes. The skipper replies with the now famous line, "We'll be shark bait in 10 minutes," which doesn't actually make sense since technically they are already shark bait. Anyways, the shark comes back and the skipper misses with the grenade launcher once again, this time accidentally igniting a nearby gas dock. The skipper then explains that they are going to unload the guests onto a fishing dock in an attempt to save them. However, the shark appears once again, but this time it accidentally bites down on a high voltage power cable, frying it. The guests smell the roasted shark and it makes one final lunge for the boat, but the skipper is able to kill it with the grenade launcher. Everyone cheers as they are returned safely to Amity. All in all, the shark appears 5 times on the starboard side and only twice on the port side, so you were luckier to be placed on the starboard side. So that was Jaws the ride, but hold on because its history is not over just yet. A few notable events took place with the ride after its second release. First, every year the attraction was drained, and the Department of Environmental Protection was tipped that oil and other toxins from the ride were being irresponsibly disposed of, which essentially just meant that they had to change their fuel type and do a lot of paperwork. In 2000,
I like the idea that they're just poisoning the water, though.
To increase in Florida to the point that it was too expensive to operate the Jaws ride, thus causing it to be open only infrequently and seasonally from 2005 to 2007. Also, the attraction was refurbished constantly to ensure that the ride operated correctly. So why was it closed? Unlike other Defunctland entries, this one is pretty simple. Harry Potter. The franchise was going to and did save Universal's attendance numbers, and Jaws was replaced with the Diagon Alley attraction, Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts. While the attraction at Universal is gone, there is still a Jaws operating at Universal Studios Japan, and the short scene during the tram tour is still operating.
I thought it was just because it was so fucking boring they said fuck it.
That is the history of Jaws the ride. There are a few more interesting anecdotes to the attraction that I decided weren't relevant enough to discuss here, but if you would like to read more on Jaws, visit the links below. One is to themeparktourist.com, which is where I got the majority of my research for ExtraTERRORestrial and Jaws, and the other is to a Reddit AMA by a skipper who worked on the ride. I recommend checking both of these out. As always, to learn more about where the remains of Jaws are today,
that ride sucked.
To get them back, and where I will place them in Defunctland.
Kind of nostalgic though to see it operating. Make sure to smash that like button and thumbs up, ring the bell, tell your mom I said hi. Yeah, that's about it. See ya.